Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 125. It's Wednesday, the 17th of May. Dennis Schrader here with Kasper Rozalowski on a fun, sexy, spicy episode of Submission Radio this week.
I agree. Sexy and spicy are definitely the themes this week. It's good to be back. It's good to be back to the original format. I know last week we did a bit of a preview show. We had journalists on talking about UFC 211 and other things. Now, back to the original sexy format. We've got some fighters on the show and some other people as well. Bas Rutten, El Guapo himself, the handsome one, returning to Submission Radio. Always a pleasure having him on the program. There's a lot to talk about. I want to talk about UFC 211, just a lot of the things happening in his life. He's doing that awesome show, the Bas Rutten Experiment. And, yes, there's just heaps to talk to Bas about. TJ Dillashaw, obviously the Ultimate Fighter is pretty hot and the in thing right now. And we don't even know if the fight's going to be happening. We don't know what's going on with Cody Garbrandt. We saw that he was getting stem cells done today, but we want to get TJ on the program, talk about a whole bunch of things, Ultimate Fighter, Cody Garbrandt, and this potential Demetrious Johnson fight, and then Mark Hunt, a man who we haven't had on the show for a very, very long time, and we've missed him. We want to get him on the program. He's fighting Derek Lewis at UFC New Zealand, so we want to talk to him about that, and of course, get an update on the lawsuit and everything happening. And yeah, there's a lot to be talking about this episode, isn't there, Dennis?
Yeah, there's a lot. Also joining us on the show near the end, the man himself, Damon Martin. You know him from his amazing work on Fox Sports and Nerdcore Movement. He joins us back on the program to talk about some of this crazy stuff that's happened at UFC 211 over the weekend, the Alvarez-Poirier controversy, Frankie Edgar, Yair Rodriguez, Maia, Masvidal, Stipe, JDS, and we'll also talk to him about what's going on with this whole GSP thing, because you know, Damon is a man in the know, and I'm curious to see what his thoughts are, if this matchup is still happening or not. I think we're all kind of in limbo in the MMA world right now, so curious to see what kind of updates he can give us. And just for those listening at home, it will be Bas Rutten, Mark Hunt, TJ Dillashaw, and Damon Martin. And then at the end of the episode, me and Kasper are going to break down some stuff as well. We'll be talking about this crazy Summer Kickoff press conference, giving our thoughts on what happened during the crazy event, including the Kevin Lee, Michael Chiesa scuffle, DC John Jones, what our reaction was to that, just in general what our thoughts was on the trash talk around the panel and everybody there on the day, and also discussing this Chris Weidman, Kevin Gastelum matchup, if it makes sense, what it really means, and all of that. So a lot to discuss there, Cass. Just a quick reminder as well to everybody listening at home to follow us on Twitter at SubmissionAUS, on Facebook. Give us a like, facebook.com/SubmissionRadioAUS. And if you guys haven't yet and you have a chance, jump on iTunes and give us a review. Me and Kasper love reading them, and we sure do appreciate them. It helps us out on the iTunes side of things, and we love checking out what you guys have to say. So without further ado, Cass, it's time to get into the show. It's going to be a big one. Oh, and also, before we jump into the first guest, you will be doing a movie review at the end as well. So I'm excited to hear about that too. So without further ado, it's time to jump into the show. We've got our first guest on the line, and Cass, I believe you're about to introduce him.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a show regular and one of our favorite people to chat to. He's a former UFC heavyweight champion, a multiple-time king of pancrates, a Hollywood star, UFC Hall of Famer, and the inventor of the O2 trainer. Now, he's the star of his own show, the Bas Rutten Experiment. He is none other than El Guapo himself, Bas Rutten. Bas, welcome back to Submission Radio. How's things with you?
Doing great. Yeah, we just went to Mammoth. We came back yesterday, and unbelievable. Check this out. We're in California. You can literally jump in the ocean right now, and if you drive 5 hours, you have like 24 different lifts and ski tracks in the mountains. It's insane. I mean, you can do two water sports. Water ski, and you can ski on the snow. Same time.
Wow. I mean, what a world we live in. And I mean, that's a great thing about living over there where you are. One of the things we noticed is, was it your wife's birthday over the weekend as well?
Yes, it was her 50th, and she was thinking about take a party first, but then she realized, you know what? Maybe it's more fun if we go with the family. We go ski a few days. And so that's what we did.
Now, was this water skiing or was this snow skiing? What do you prefer, Bas?
Snow ski. I prefer water ski. I like wakeboarding. But snow skiing, I didn't do it. I got in August. We're going to do the second season from Kevin Can Wait. And last time I was skiing 14 years ago, I broke my ribs. I broke everything. So this time I'm going to stay in. I'm going to do my work there and let the kids and my wife ski and snowboard. And then I'll take it easy.
Wow, I don't want to bring up traumatic experiences, but can you tell us what happened? How did you manage to get all these ribs broken? What happened to you there?
Well, I used to trick ski a lot, which is behind a boat or a cable ski, whatever you prefer. And it's a board with no fin under it, so you can make circles, you can left and right, you can jump on ramps. Even if you fall in the water, if you just keep holding on to the stick, so to say, and your ski is still on your right foot, you can put the foot. They call it the tumble turn. You can put the foot back on the water, and then you pop out of the water again. So, Once I went to snow skiing, I said, you know what, I'm going to try snowboarding. And this guy recognized me. He says, I'm going to give you this great board, boss. It's a pro board. I said, I don't know. I'm not a pro. So anyway, he gives me the board. I jump on it. The lift was a little bit difficult to get off because it's a really weird foot setting for your snowboard. But once I put my back foot in there and I started skiing, I go like snowboarding. I go, man, this is easy. It's the same as trick skiing. So I go left, right. And of course, in my mind, I go, this is easy. So let's go fast. And then at that moment, my wife comes by on skis and she's pretty fast. And I figured, I'm going to slap her on her butt. I'm going to make her, I'm going to freak her out. So I'm starting to follow her on my snowboard, which is something they say you should not do, go for speed. You should make turns the whole time. Yeah. So I'm faster. And just before I wanted to hit her, apparently there was a ramp. And I hit the thing and I flew through the air. And then I made a complete somersault and I landed on my chest, and in my front pocket, I had a CB radio with me. So I landed on that. That snapped all my ribs. My knees were twisted. It was insane. You had the ambulance coming, the snow people with the little car to get you out of there. And I'm laying on the ground, and there's no way I can speak, right? My ribs are broken. So I'm like, I'm breathing like that. And the guy's asking my name, and I'm just looking at him, and I put my finger up like I can't speak, and he says, no, I need to know your name. I go, and I'm breathing. I said, so I put my finger up. He says, sir, I need to know your name. So I look at him, and I wave to him that he has to come closer. And he comes closer, and I grab him by the throat, and I'm pointing at my ribs, and he goes, oh, you can't speak. I go, So that was my experience. And then it became funny because now I was hanging out in the bar the whole time, of course, with everybody. So my wife, when she came skiing down with her friends, I had the whole bar upside down. Everybody was singing songs, I started singing with everybody. She goes, oh my God, I guarantee you that's Bas doing this. And when they arrived, it was me. I took the blame.
And of course, all these years later, and with a special birthday celebration, did you try and slap her ass again on the slopes, or was this out of the books?
No, I didn't do that. I just did that while we were walking. I thought it's a safer thing to do.
Yeah, that's a much safer idea. Now, Bas, you've got your new show out at the moment called The Bas Rutten Experiment, and it's available on YouTube, and it's presented by Champions. We've been watching a lot of episodes, and it's really funny stuff. How are you enjoying filming these sketches so far?
Oh, I love it. Every time when I can make fun or do fun things, when they came to me to give me the proposal, I go, dude, that's me. I love to do that stuff. Yeah, sign me up. When do you want to start? So that's how we got it. And I would love to do more. I enjoy doing it.
To me, it's a little bit different. Like, I really like what Champions are doing. It's almost becoming like a Saturday Night Live sort of thing of MMA stars doing different videos. I mean, the first 3 episodes have been really hilarious. What's the plan with these, though, Bas? How many episodes are you hoping to make? Is it sort of a case-by-case basis, or have you guys lined out a certain, almost like a little season that you'll be doing?
Right now, it's stopped. What they're doing right now, they cut them all up and they make them in single clips. That's what they're doing right now, and that's getting a whole bunch of views again. So I think that in probably a couple of months, I think there will be some new writing, and then hopefully we can start again.
Very nice, very nice. And also, last time you told us some funny audition and script stories. I think it was 2 interviews ago. There was the classic one where somebody sent you a script where you were in prison and you were supposed to use a dildo to break out somehow. I remember we all had a good laugh about that one. Other than that masterpiece, Bas, do you have any other acting projects coming up that you can tell us about? Have you been doing any auditions or anything like that?
There is a chance. I just saw the email because I just came back. It's in England. It's an MMA movie, but it's a good movie, and it's not an ending like you would expect in a mixed martial arts movie. Because I went right away till the end. I go, I need to know what the end is, because if it's again, and I was the world champion, whatever, man. It's all the same thing. But this was a complete different thing, and it's written by a guy who's a great director, who's doing really well at these film festivals. So I might do it because it's a good part. I'm the coach of the lead actor, and he's got some pretty good names already attached to it. So I might jump over to England in October, I believe, to see if I can do it.
Wow, imagine that. A great role for you would be like if Guy Ritchie ever did like a Snatch or a Lock Stock. You're ever in England shooting like an MMA type movie. If you threw your part in like a sequel to that, because I feel like there's a character there to be made for you, Bas, that will live in the pop cultures for ages. But anyway, let's move on to the fighting, because there was a busy weekend of fights, UFC 211. A lot of interesting things happened. So while you were sloping, we hope you heard about some of the stuff that went on. And one of the first things we want to bring up with you is Joanna Jędrzejczyk's dominant win over Jessica Andrade. I don't know if you got a chance to watch this fight or not, Bas, but I mean, if you did get a chance to see some of it or see what happened afterwards, what was your thought of how Joanna looked in this one?
She's complete domination. She's just a very. Against Andrade, I thought she was gonna get a few rounds at least. She's a powerful puncher. Yes, she's not as technical as Jędrzejczyk is, but man, she can hit if she connects. And if she wants to make it a dog fight, I thought it's going to be a tough fight for Jędrzejczyk. But I think her teaming up with American Top Team has been a very smart thing to do, and she just cruised through it. I mean, it was a blowout, right? Every single round she got.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was going to be a much closer fight. I predicted 47-48 to Joanna, and it was such domination. And she's about to break Ronda Rousey's record for the most title defenses by a woman in the UFC. She's evened it, and in her next fight she'll break it. But as far as skill sets go, obviously between her and Ronda and being well-rounded, it's night and day. Do you think she's already surpassed Ronda as the most dominant woman in the history of the UFC?
Oh, I don't know. I think she's. What Ronda did was something, it was completely new. And that's why it's so fresh in us. It was so dominant. And, every time winning with the same thing, an armbar, and everybody knows she's going to armbar you, and yet they're not able to stop it. So that was a very powerful statement. But Jędrzejczyk is just, she's an animal. I completely love her, everything about her, the way she fights, presents herself. She will break that record. I think it's going to be very hard for the UFC to find somebody who can actually beat her.
And I mean, striking-wise, her technique is just beautiful to watch. I mean, you're known for your amazing striking yourself. When you're watching that, was it almost just like a delight to your eyes, being able to see the footwork that she was using, the angles that she was cutting, the combinations she was putting together?
She's just amazes me every single time. If your base striking comes from Ernesto Hoost, well, we're talking about one of the best strikers on the planet ever from Holland, and she trained with him a lot. And then she went to Holland, where she was training, and she fought all the Dutch girls and beat all the Dutch girls. So I knew she was a really great striker, because we have a whole bunch of great strikers in Holland. So I was not surprised, especially because she started with Ernesto Hoost.
And while we're on the subject of surprises, what did you think of Stipe's win over Junior Dos Santos? I mean, we read your pre-fight breakdown on champions.co. Were you surprised by how quickly Stipe put Junior away?
No, yeah, I was surprised. I would have thought it would be like around the third round, but that was my prediction. I thought he was going to knock Junior Dos Santos out in the third round, and like Mauro on our podcast said, he thought Junior was going to knock him out in the third round. So to do it in the first, well, it's even better. The thing with him is he got in his whole groove. He got into the champion, being the champion. He's the guy now who actually defends the belt as a heavyweight, which didn't happen a lot before, and I think because he looks at fighting so simple. He's a blue-collar guy. He doesn't overthink things. He just fights, and he's really good at it. And I think a guy like that who's not faced by anybody, not by Overeem, when he got dropped and then he got put in the guillotine, and coming out of that and then stopping over him again. I mean, the guy knows that he can take a punch. He knows that he can come back. Those are all great qualities to have. And on top of that, he's a great boxer. I mean, he's a great athlete in general. This guy can do anything. And then, who doesn't like a guy like that? Who's also a fireman on the side. I mean, it's almost a movie. You pick out a guy, blue-collar guy. Everybody loves the guy. And the way he talks, and you think you're the best. You say, well, I'm the world champion, Joe. Of course I'm the best. He keeps it simple. And I think a guy like that's hard to beat.
Too good to be real. I mean, if you saw it in a movie, you'd be like, this has to be fiction. A firefighter and a champion, come on. But, I mean, it's real life. And his last 4 fights have been first-round KOs against guys like Arlovsky, Verdum, Overeem, and now Junior. Before that, he beat Mark Hunt, obviously, here in Australia. Now people are putting him in the discussion for possibly being one of, if not the greatest heavyweight of all time. I mean, we kind of have these discussions quite frequently, Bas. It's a thing that people enjoy doing in the MMA community. But where do you stand on that in terms of Stipe possibly being one of the greatest ever or being the greatest ever?
Well, he's going to have to fight a few more fights first now, of course. But yeah, he's doing unbelievable. I mean, he's dropping everybody. If you just the names that you threw out there, I mean, Overeem and dropping all these guys, that's a pretty impressive thing, But I would like to see him again against Stefan Struve now, And I know Stefan Struve is maybe, I don't know if he's in the top 10. He should be, right? I would think so. I don't know. But that would be a good fight because that's another black page, the only black page that he has left. So if he would stop Struve, then the 2 losses that he had on his record, well, he just avenged them.
I definitely feel like that's a fight that he'd want to do at some point. I know Cain Velasquez is sort of sidelined at the moment. Some people are expecting. I think Dana White said that he might be coming back around the fall. Some people are also talking about Francis Ngannou. Would you sort of lock in Struve as the definite next fight, or what do you think about potentially Cain Velasquez or even a guy like Francis Ngannou?
Oh, no, I would love to have Cain Velasquez, of course. He never fought a guy like Cain. Cain is a complete different animal in the heavyweight division. This is a guy who will be on you, and he won't let you off. He's constantly fighting, constantly clinching, constantly looking for a takedown. The whole time he's working, I mean, he's tiring you out. He's all over the place. Takedowns, hits, kicks, constantly that pushing. Can Miocic keep that... Does he have that kind of stamina? That's the biggest question if you fight a guy like Cain Velasquez. But then again, his footwork looks really good right now. Maybe he just can avoid Velasquez coming forward by moving to the side. Although I personally think it's a very hard thing to do because he comes storming in. He comes flying in with big punches and boom, there's a clinch. And from that moment, it's a dogfight.
I'm curious, where are you at with Derek Lewis? I mean, he's fighting Mark Hunt here in New Zealand. A lot of people thinking if he wins against Mark Hunt, he'll be up there as well. He's obviously evolved quite a bit in his last few fights. Do you think he gets past Mark Hunt and is a force in this division? Or are you not yet sold sort of on how good he could be in the division?
Well, I think from his last 6 or 7 fights, whatever he had, I think it was only one decision, I think, right? Everybody else he stopped. I was also impressed with him when he fought Shamil because it was the 4th round. And I know it was not a pretty fight, and he said that himself after the fight, and then he came back, knocked out Travis Brown like that. So I figured, yeah, he had an off day. But for a guy that size to still stop somebody in the 4th round, that's really good. How you say that? Thing to have under your belt. If you know that you're that weight, and you can go 4 or 5 rounds, that's pretty incredible. So he only needs to connect, but it's a speed advantage. It's all about speed. And I think when you fight a guy like Stipe, who's in and out the whole time because of his great boxing skills, he's got great footwork, it's going to be hard to hit. But on the other side, of course, Lewis has the one-punch knockout. And it's a different kind of punch than any other heavyweight because this guy weighs a lot and has got natural punching power. So once you're 264 pounds, he's probably 270 to 75 on the day of the fight again because he's then all fluid up again, back and fluid up. It's just a hard guy to fight. But the only way you can fight him is to attack the body the whole time, which Stipe loves to do, and in and out movement, and get this guy tired. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, for sure. Strong points. And he's actually another guy who did a really, really funny skit on champions.co. Something
yeah,
Bas, I love the end where he's all like, "Get rid of that Ronda Rousey wig" or something. That was good. That was so good. Now, Bas, something that we'll be talking about a little bit later on the show is obviously this whole ridiculous situation with the GSP Bisping fight being delayed, and until possibly November. Now looks like the fight isn't even happening anymore, allegedly, and then Yoel Romero might be getting the title shot instead, which is kind of what everybody thought was going to happen after 205 anyway. What did you make of this whole situation?
Well, my question, okay, I'm very happy for Yoel Romero because he deserves it. But, let's play devil's advocate right now. What if Romero wins? Is GSP going to fight Romero? That's what I would like to know. Because GSP against Bisping, I can understand his technique here. He's going to take him down, and he's going to pepper him with elbows and punches, and that's how he's going to win that fight. We know his style, but against the guy who went to the Olympics, a great wrestler, that will be a really great fight, actually. So I would love to see that fight.
Do you think GSP would want to take that fight, though?
You know what? That's what I'm saying. It's a hard fight after coming back after so many years, and to face a guy like Romero. It's a hard fight to pick for him. So I don't know. I don't know if he would take. If he does, I'll be stoked because I would love to see what happens.
I mean, I think it'd be respectable if GSP did. I mean, obviously you wouldn't take anything away from him if he didn't. It is a guy in the weight class above. But if he did, I think that would take some pretty big balls. And even though a lot of the middleweights would be pissed off, you'd have guys like Rockhold and, Whitaker saying, hey, we're here. But let's say this doesn't happen. Let's say the UFC say, all right, this whole GSP thing at middleweight, failed experiment. Let's say, it never happens. Who would you like to see him fight instead? Are you sort of keen on Anderson Silva, maybe a Nick Diaz rematch? Or is there a part of you that would maybe like to see him cut the line at welterweight and fight Tyron Woodley? And, unfortunately, Damian Maia would be out in the cold again.
Yeah, poor Damian, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's an athlete, man. Insane. That was an unbelievable fight again. I don't know, man. I really don't know what the best fight will be. I think Silva and him, because that a few years ago, everybody wanted to see it. Maybe it's one of those things. It's still in the mind of people, in the minds. Maybe they should do it, and then take it from there. I think that will be a good fight for him. You two guys who are ruling the UFC simultaneously, and then now they compete finally, maybe in a catch weight. So then both guys are going to be happy with it, whatever weight it's going to be. That would be great. I think the Silva fight would make sense to me.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one as well. We thought of you recently because for a long time when you've been on the show, you've obviously been a World Series of Fighting guy. You've done a lot of commentating for them. And we always asked you about Justin Gaethje and how you'll see him doing in the UFC and if he'll ever go there. And I guess that's always been the big question that we've trying to answer for quite some time. Well, of course, now he's made the move and he's going to face Michael Johnson on July 7th at the TUF finale. So how do you feel about now that he's left and now that he's in the UFC? What do you think about that fight?
Well, it's a real tough fight for him. I mean, if you go back against Melvin Gillard, Melvin, he's an explosive fighter, but he was not in the top 10 anymore in the UFC, and he had a hard time against him. And I love everything about Justin Gaethje. The only thing that I don't like is that he takes way too many shots. He shouldn't take those shots because against really great strikers like Johnson, that Michael Johnson, that could be of course a problem. So, and what he also does is every single punch, he overcommits to every single punch. So if he misses a punch, he's wide open. That again, against an experienced fighter, could be trouble. On the other side, we love him because, well, if there's a fight with Justin Gaethje, it's a fight. You will never. I don't believe he never had a boring fight. So that's the great thing. But for him, for the longevity, I would say make it a little tighter. You hit already so hard. You don't need to load up. He's got that natural power, but in his mind, he just wants to destroy the opponents, which is great for the audience, but technically it's a little bit dangerous. You're taking chances. Why would you take chances? Be a little bit more compact. And what about a Justin Gaethje, who is a great wrestler, who suddenly shoots in, takes his opponent down, and then rains down those big punches that he has. I mean, if he can do it on the feet, he's got great power on the ground as well. Take the opponent down and just beat him up there. The good thing that you create with that is now the whole UFC, all the other fighters see, oh, wait a minute. Oh, we forgot. He might also take us down. It's a good way to get in the head of the future opponents. So that's what I would tell him to do. See if he can take Michael Johnson to the ground, because nobody's going to expect it. They're all going to think it's going to be a brawl, and then suddenly take him down and go for ground and pound. See if you can stop him.
Yeah, it's interesting. He mentioned that he's a D1 wrestler in the press conference. He said that to Michael Johnson. So I don't know. You might be onto something, Bas. You might have figured out his game plan already. And I love when this happens, when you get guys, like a Overeem or Gil Melendez or Eddie Alvarez or Hector Lombard. They come in from these other organizations. We see how they do in the UFC. And while we're sort of speaking about the World Series of Fighting, they've completely changed their format, Bas, and obviously now they're called the Professional Fighters League. The relaunch is set for January of 2018. Just curious, what do you think about the change? And also, are you still going to be with the company in the meantime and sort of in 2018 as well?
Yes, I'm going to be there. I heard in last December, I heard all the plans, but we were not allowed to say anything to anybody. But I think the whole, what they come up with now, winning $1 million at the end of next year for a fighter who goes through the whole year the best in every single weight class. Whoa, I wonder what Gaethje and what is I forgot David Branch were thinking now. As soon as they left, suddenly they hear the next year they could win $1 million if they would have won. So that's a lot of money for a fighter.
And I mean, this is kind of revolutionary, this concept, and the way that it's being put together. Do you think if it goes well and people see that this works, this could be the beginning of something new and fresh in MMA, where other companies may look to sort of use some of those ideologies, and possibly this may be better for fighters in the future?
Yeah, I truly believe so. We need something different. Everything is the same all the time, to break the mold and to do something different. I tell you, it's like the International Fight League. Remember at the time? I mean, they were doing great. It got so big, and that was the problem. It got too big, too fast, and suddenly they start making these crazy, they start making mistakes. Let's get a big office. Let's get, they start spending money because they grew so fast after they had that special. I believe it was 20 minutes. It's a program here, a documentary style program here, where Renzo Gracie and the IFL was highlighted. And I mean, the next day it was a public company. I think the stocks went from 85 cents to $12 in one day. So, I mean, and I, because I was one of the 3 coaches from there that they really wanted, I had 380,000 shares. Oh. So I was like, whoa, $4 million, this is really great. But then, unfortunately, everything went too fast. I think they should have stayed with the same concept. Why need a bigger office? You're doing great. You're now, all the success that you have has been done with this office. Why would you change the office? Why would you hire more people? You don't need it. Just stay and do the same thing. But yeah, they didn't, and it all fell apart, unfortunately.
Wow, $4 million. Well, you're doing well now, Bas, so that's the main thing. And now, obviously, we're happy to see that your podcast, Rutten and Ranallo, is back. Anything else that you've got around the corner? Anything cooking on the stove that we and the fans can look forward to and look out for? Yes,
in August, the second season of Kevin Can Wait, the Kevin James sitcom, is going to start, and I already had noticed that I'm going to be in it. So I'm going to be Rutger, my character, is going to be back, and we're going to see him a whole bunch of times next season. I'm so stoked for that, especially after Inside MMA stopped.
Yeah.
You start thinking like, whoa, hey, wait a minute, what do I do next? And then, I did one episode, and they all loved it, and they say, hey, we want you back. And then I did 3 more, and now the season stopped, and they said, no, don't worry about it. We want you back next year, and you're going to be back in a whole bunch of shows. So I'm super stoked. I'm so happy. You have no idea, because it's a scary moment for a little bit. I've invested a lot of money in the O2 trainer, which is going really well as well. So everything is going well. I'm an extremely happy person right now.
Wow, yeah, and that's kind of Netflix as well. It's kind of changed the game when it comes to watching shows and movies. So it's great to see there's such a big part of that. Great show, and fans need to go and look out for that. Just quickly, Bas, before we wrap up, I mean, Casper just mentioned the podcast. Your co-host is obviously the very, very talented Mauro Ranallo, and he's very beloved by the MMA community. There's been a little bit of speculation on why he hasn't been in the WWE recently, and we understand you can't really say much. But for the MMA fans that may be a little bit concerned about him, is he doing okay? Is everything all right? Can you sort of give us an update on that?
Yeah, he's doing great. It took a little bit, but he's completely back. We already shot 2 podcasts again. This week we couldn't because I was in Mammoth. We wanted to change our podcast to recording on Mondays now, so we can release it on Tuesday. I think it's a better time than releasing it on Friday, because before the weekend nobody listens to it. And the shows that we did the Combat Sports Carousel we used to do on Monday. They had way higher numbers than the Rutten and Ranello show had. So we figured, okay, we're going to stop. So from next week on, it's probably going to be released on a Tuesday. And he's doing awesome, and he's got some crazy. You already saw he was in Japan, right, for Ryzen.
Yeah.
So doing the commentating there, but there's some other things coming up, and some things that people are not gonna expect. So, unfortunately, I can't say anything about it. But no, he's still in the works. He's going to do a lot of work, and there's going to be some big surprises coming very soon.
Great. Well, look, that's what we wanted to know. We appreciate the update. Guys, don't forget to follow Bas on Twitter at Bas Rutten MMA, and also on Facebook, his official Facebook, where he's got a lot of fun technique videos. Obviously, the podcast we just mentioned before, Rutten and Ranello, with the fresh new release date, the Bas Rutten Experiment, champions.co, and of course, anytime you've heard Bas Rutten on the show, we've always mentioned the O2 Trainer, which obviously improves your lung capacity and is good for a lot of things, whether you've got asthma or not. It can prove a lot of things, and that's available at o2trainer.com. And now, you just mentioned Kevin Can Wait. That's dropping in August. So, Bas, for a man who was concerned that you might not have it a lot on the plate, you've actually got a lot of things. And we always appreciate you coming by and chatting with us. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome, guys. I'm always having a blast with you. So it's an easy thing.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
Our next guest is one of the most entertaining heavyweights of all time. With an impressive career spanning such major organizations as Pride K1 and now the UFC, he's fought and beaten a who's who of heavyweights around the world. He now returns to New Zealand to headline yet another card against Derek Lewis. The Super Samoan Mark Hunt, welcome back to Submission Radio. It's been a while, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate the time.
I appreciate yours more, Mark. Really glad that you came on the show. We're very excited. Now, we noticed on Instagram when we were stalking you that you've got a new Juggernaut bike, motorbike. Tell us, where have you taken it so far, and what kind of crazy adventures are you planning to have with it?
Oh, man, I love riding. I love riding. I've just taken a V-rod, and just changed it, did a little tweaks to it. The guys at DGD Customs, they did a real good job. They did it in a week, so they're awesome guys, and they know everything about bikes. I've been riding with a couple of mates of mine, and just it's riding Harley, especially at home. It feels really good to me because it's time for my relaxation, and I can just put on the helmet and just start cruising. It's awesome. It's one of the best feelings in the world. It's like I don't know. It's nothing like fighting, but riding is good.
Yeah. Get away from it all. Another thing that we noticed and MMA fans noticed was a crazy new action figure that was naked that was created of you that you shared a picture of on Instagram. Now, you asked the question of why would you do this to me? Have you gotten a response? Is it safe to say you won't be buying it for the family this coming Christmas?
Well, to be honest, mate, my lawyer friend is messaging these Chinese company and just letting them know how I feel. It's not a good thing to make dolls up when you don't have the permission to do it. Mm-hmm. But we'll sort it out. A short letter will fix it up. Ain't no problems with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a bizarre figure. What was your reaction when you initially saw it, and how did you find it? How was it actually brought to your attention? How did you find out that this thing even existed?
Well, to be honest, when a fan messaged it and he goes, "Have you seen this 12-inch figure?" And I didn't even know. I said, "What are you talking about?" I had a look because I'm kind of active on my page. And then when he messaged me, I had a look and I was like, "Oh my God, what is this rubbish, man?" So you got this guy. He's got detachable hands. I didn't even. To be honest, I don't know if that's a real doll, but that's what he said to me. And he said it's got detachable hands. It's got a freaking 5-inch dick, which is not, it's not good for me. It should be at least 9 inches. At least it should be 9 inches. Fucking 5 inches, man. I mean, 5. It's disgusting. So I was like, wait a minute. Well, if the hands are detachable, why wouldn't you give me a detachable dick? I can put on bigger ones. And anyway, I was just having a laugh with it. He said, yeah, but you know what? I got my mate onto it, and then we'll be sorting it out soon. So I think it's a Chinese company that does it.
Yeah. Imagine it just becomes massive in China. It just becomes one of the best-selling toys over there. That would be some trouble. Now, let's talk about the big fight.
A sex doll.
Yeah. You just become a huge celebrity in China. You don't even realize it until 10 years from now when you go up there. It's everywhere. But anyway, before we get to this big fight with Derek Lewis at UFC New Zealand, we want to get your thoughts on last weekend's title defense where Stipe was able to quickly beat JDS to retain his title. What did you think about the way he was able to do it?
Oh, well, I only watched the highlights of it, and I think, I think Stipe is a clean fighter. I don't think he's cheating. I think he's a great champion, and I underestimated him. I made a lot of mistakes when I fought him, and he deserves to keep the bout. He's worked hard for the bout, and I mean, the fight that I saw, the highlights I saw, was kind of a decline for JDS. I thought he would come back a lot stronger, but who knows? They're both great fighters. They both beat me, so I can't really complain about it. You know what I mean? And then, all I can say is, well, that was a great fight, and the better man won.
Yeah, and we know that you had some tough circumstances regarding your weight cut leading into your fight with Stipe in Adelaide. Is that sort of a rematch that you're gunning for, that you want, assuming you do beat Derek in New Zealand?
Well, I'd like the rematch with JDS and Stipe, both of them, because I'd like a rematch of both those guys. All the guys I've lost. I mean, I lost a rematch against Alistair Overeem, but everyone knows he's a fucking cheating cocksucker anyway. So that's the problem these days. The problem these days is they're all on fucking steroids, and 80% of them need to be fucking checked.
I mean, the interesting thing is the way the division is right now, with Cain Velasquez not being back yet and Verdum and Overeem fighting, a dominant win over Derek could see you ending up with possibly another title shot. I'm just wondering, have you thought about if the UFC would actually give you another title shot after the lawsuit and sort of having an uncertain relationship with them?
Well, I don't know. Like I said, there's nothing certain these days. UFC can fire me whenever they want. The thing is, like I said, I'm only doing my job as my contract allows me, and the reason I tell this with the UFC is because, like I said, all I'm asking for when I sued them and everything was an even playing field. I spoke to Dana before all this shit happened and said, I need you guys to make this right. You promised he was going to be clean. I did say that he looked like he was juiced out of his brains, but, he weighed less than me, I think, 500 grams heavier than me, and he still looked like he was 3 times my size. It's just, like I said, me being going on about steroids and everything, it's illegal, and they shouldn't be doing it, and, all I'm trying to do is get an even playing field here these days. I still don't think it's the UFC are doing enough about this sort of shit. So, a lot of the fighters I see are declining because, they look like they were on the juice and the next minute they're not the same fighters. Well, yeah, because they're getting caught these days, these juice monkeys. So, yeah. Like I don't know what's going to happen with fighting. I mean, with the UFC, whether they might fire me today or tomorrow. Who knows?
What's sort of making you think that they might fire you, Mark? Is there some kind of indication that makes you believe that, or are you just theorizing it as a possibility?
No, nothing's happened. I'm just putting it out there and saying, that's what I mean. You said they might fire me for this. Well, that's just the way it is with work. I mean, with me soon, you said they might fire me for me soon. And well, look, all I was doing with that suing, I asked first if this could be rectified another way. It wouldn't. They didn't want to do it. So then I had no choice but to push forward with my legal team and my lawyers, because I have no choice. I'm not going to keep fighting juices.
Yeah.
Why should I? Why should I be fighting juices my whole career? I've done it most of my career. And they say, well, you knew. Well, how the fuck am I supposed to know this shit?
Mm-hmm.
That's rubbish, man. That's just a lame excuse it's a lame excuse for these freaking guys to keep cheating and get away with it. It's a lame cop-out. I think it's bullshit. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. And I say that they might fight, well, because I'm suing them, well, what am I supposed to do? Shut my mouth and keep working and fighting juices until my head comes off?
You're right. You shouldn't. It's not something that...
Three times in a row. 3 times in a row. I mean, anyone would ask the question. 3 guys in a row, and then it would have been the 4th guy if I'd fought in Melbourne against Josh Barnett. And then, why do I keep getting the short end of the stick? Why should I? I shouldn't have to accept this rubbish. And, I don't give a fuck about all these people saying to me, oh, Mark, you just keep whinging, complaining. Man, fuck you, man. You don't know shit. None of you motherfuckers ever do that fighting against juices. You don't know what it's like. You get injured, there goes a whole year of pay. You might lose an eye. then they sign up to fight juice heads. Otherwise, they should make a competition for the juice heads and the non-juice heads.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mark. I think it's something very understandable being in your position. I get what you...
Mate, when you say you think I'm right, I don't think I know I'm right. I know I'm right about this because steroids shouldn't be allowed and cheating shouldn't be allowed in sport, especially at the high end. If the UFC want legitimacy, they've got to be legitimate and say, well, okay, we're doing everything to do against these steroid users and cheaters because it ain't fair.
Yeah, I agree.
If I go put a bet on a fucking game, you know, and I know that all the fucking one teams, all of them are a bunch of juicers, who do you think I'm going to put my money on? Oh, I'm going to put my money on the fucking juice head team because they got more chances of winning.
Yeah,
anyway.
I
don't really start talking about.
I'm just curious, Mark. You mentioned before about, you know, if the UFC were to fire you, if that were to happen, what would your reaction be? Would you be happy because you would then have the opportunity to explore other options, or are you hoping that this somehow gets worked out and in some capacity you can fight in the UFC and keep fighting?
Well, look, mate, I have done nothing wrong here. Yeah, why do I feel like you trying to talk to me like I've done something wrong? Where does it say that I've done something wrong ever? All I've ever done is go into the octagon, do my job, and try to be the best in the world. Where is it that Mark has done something wrong in this scenario here? That I have to be made to feel like the bad guy? That, all these fucking fake-ass fans talking, you keep complaining and whining, man. Man, fuck you, man. I'll complain about this shit because as long as I want until it becomes even. Sick of fighting on an uneven playing field where it ain't fucking fair. These guys get all the advantages of a better seat, recovering quicker, and here I am at 43 at the oldest guy in the UFC and doing it without cheating.
Yeah.
So explain to me where I've gone wrong by anything in my contract where I've done anything wrong apart from, you know, opening my mouth and saying, hey man, we're gonna get a fair go here.
And just for the record, Mark, I think what Casper's trying to say is we totally support your position and we agree with what you're saying. So just not to get that confused so you think we're on the other side of the ball. You mentioned the lawsuit, and we want to move on from it, but just a second while we're on it, how is it going? Because we did see recently Brock Lesnar's lawyer put in a motion to dismiss the lawsuit in March. Where are you guys at the moment with it? Is it still progressing nicely? Are you guys sort of at a roadblock at the moment? Where are you at? What kind of update can you give the fans?
Well, it's coming towards hearing at the moment. I don't know if I can talk about this with the lawyers, but I mean, it's probably public knowledge anyway. So it's coming to a hearing where the judge, I think it's next Monday or something, the judge is going to say whether it's going to be kept or thrown out of the lawsuit, the cases I've brought against the UFC against Brock Lesnar and Dana White. Like I said, this didn't even have to happen. It could have been sorted out way before. Or like I said, 3 cheaters in a row. I want something done about it. And the last straw was Brock Lesnar. People said, what pisses me off the most is what people say to me, Mark, aren't you just a money hungry grub? You're trying to money grab. Dude, my contract that I have can suffice me. Why would I open my mouth and try to lose my contract for? If it was about money. The bottom line is the guy's done wrong, the company's done wrong, and you need to pay for that shit. Why should I go in there and fucking lose my eyeballs and I've done nothing wrong? And like I said, I couldn't give 2 fucks about people complaining and I complain about, fuck you guys. You guys don't, you never fought in your life in talking your shit. You ain't the one going to lose an eye and feel like this is a disadvantage because that's what it is.
Right. And that's
where the case is. That's where the case is at the moment, and we're nearly on the phase of discovery afterwards. So I mean, after whatever the judge says, and then it goes on to the next phase of discovery where he throws it out, then we start again, or then we have to go to discovery. So like I said, I want this is all going to be sorted in the end anyway. So I mean, we're going to be finding if it does go to discovery, we're going to be finding a lot more shit. That's all I know.
I mean, just quickly, you mentioned Brock. A lot of people kind of thought he got off pretty scot-free. Once his suspension was over, he kind of decided to retire from the sport. I know this lawsuit is going on, but what are your thoughts on the way he just sort of retired from the UFC and the suspension was something that a lot of people thought was a lot shorter than what it probably should have been?
Well, Well, I mean, the only reason the suspension was like that, I think, is because, I mean, at the end of the day, if someone, like I said, if someone gets badly injured or dies, do you think that would have been enough? I don't think so. I think the public would have been like, well, just say, for instance, you know, if I had lost my life fighting the juice monkey, if I had lost my life, would that $250,000 and a year or 2 year ban would have been enough? Someone's lost their life here. I don't think so, man. I don't think it's a case. And the way the things went, I mean, that guy getting a exemption, the 4-month exemption. Well, why is that? I mean, why are these little freaking things allowed to happen? I mean, who gives someone an exemption coming off fighting, and then he coming from the WWE? I mean, he should be checked. You know, like I said, all I was told was he was clean, and this could have been sorted way before. I've just, like I said, I don't know what every other fight. I just think it should be an even playing ground. All I'm fighting for is an even playing ground. And,
I think what you're asking for is completely fair, Mark. I agree with you. And I wanted to ask you.
I'm not, like I said, the reason why I'm asking for his money and everything like this, because he should be punished for cheating. You know, I said before, it pays now to be cheating, and that's what it does. He made a lot of money, and he walked off laughing. He got a small fine, and he didn't even have to lose out of his pocket. He paid that fucking fine with the money he made that night. And then why should he be allowed? Every other sport, you know, you get your face taken off everything, you lose all your money. I mean, why are we punishing these guys? You know, why is the companies not punishing these guys for this shit? Can you answer me that question? Why?
Unfortunately, I can't. I agree with you, though. I think that the fact that Brock Lesnar came in, fought you, failed his drug test, made his money, got a suspension, didn't really serve it, retired, and then left immediately afterwards, I think it's a travesty. And I think you have every right to be pissed. What I'm curious about, though, is do you want this to go to Discovery?
Yeah, I want it to start these punishing the guys by taking their financial gain. Because anyone that weighs it up, look at it and say, well, look, man, I can make a shitload of money. I can get away with it, and people just think I'm a cheat. Yeah, so what? Okay, sweet, I'll do that. Everyone will take, you know, the other one instead of and do it. Of course, all people do it. And do I want to go to Discovery? Yeah, of course I wanted to go to Discovery. I'm like I said, this shit's going all the way. These guys are going to have to make this right. You know, not just with me, but with every fighter's contract. I want the Mark-on clause put in their contract. I want that every fighter's contract put in. If you are juicing, all that money should go to the other guy. If you're both juicing, none of you guys should get money. People say, why don't you take 80%, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so me losing my life is 80%. Well, no, they shouldn't get anything. Cheaters don't deserve any sort of money. He knew these guys that cheat know that they're going to get into a fight 3-4 months down the track. So they premeditatedly know that they're going to fight, so they cheat. So what did they say? It's like someone going to rob a bank. They plan it out, they premeditate, they go and rob the bank, and they get the money. It's like what these juicies are doing in fighting. So
yeah. And I mean, look, all great points, and hopefully we're hoping some of these things get rectified. Let's talk about UFC New Zealand, Mark, because obviously, you know, you're bothered by this, which is absolutely your right to be bothered by it. But how do you feel leading into UFC New Zealand? How's your training been, and mentally? Are you excited about fighting in New Zealand and headlining this card with Derek Lewis, or has this thing with the UFC sort of put a bit of a bad taste in your mouth and sort of ruined the experience for you a little bit?
Oh, to be honest, man, like I said, I love fighting. I don't like that I have to fight for equality, especially in my ranks as a heavyweight fighter. It's put fighting sour at the moment, especially with the way things are. But you know, I'm a fighter, and I keep going. I'm excited about fighting in Auckland. It's where I was born. I mean, what can I say? I'm just, like I said, it's real. I'm salty about having to fight for even being equal. Trying to make it an even fight. I don't think Derek Lewis is a cheater. He hasn't been caught before, and and he's still in the top 10. So I'm excited about he's above me now. So I mean, I'm looking forward to try and keep relevant in the division and put myself a little bit higher if I beat Derek Lewis. You know what I mean? That's where I stand with it. When you ask people, when all these guys that ask me about steroids and fighting in the sport, of course I'm going to voice my opinion. Of course I'm going to take it. This is what's happening right now. You know, I'm fighting. That's what sucks about this whole scenario. I'm fighting for equality in here. It's crazy. How can a fighter fight for equality because these guys are juicing? Shouldn't even be like this, to be honest.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Mark, it's your platform, so we're happy to hear whatever you have to say, absolutely. And I'm just wondering, what went into accepting this fight? Because it's reasonably quick after the Overeem fight, and I remember you saying that you felt like you were forced into the Overeem fight. Do you feel like you were forced into taking this fight?
Well, I don't feel like I was forced to take the fight, the last fight. I know I was forced to take the fight.
Yeah.
The last words from their lawyers was, if you don't take this fight, it'll be against your contract. Okay, great. I'll take the fight. You forced me to be here. Fine. This fight against Derek Lewis, I wasn't forced to take it. You know, I gladly took it because, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Why should I feel like I've done something wrong here? You know, I'm a working man. I'm a fighter, and I should be taking fights and earning my money because I've worked so hard to be up the top end. Why shouldn't I earn this money? I've worked hard to be here. My family should prosper from this financial gain that I'm getting from fighting. Because I've worked hard to get here. You know, why should I be the one that's put out? That's what I'm trying to say. Why should I be the one that's put out? Because I haven't cheated here. I haven't used steroids, and I haven't done anything wrong here.
No, absolutely.
So I feel like the fight here with Derek Lewis, I took the fight because I wanted to fight again. You know, I wanted another fight, especially in New Zealand. So I'm happy about it. You know, I wasn't forced to do that like the one against that other steroid head.
And I mean, a lot of fans are really excited about this one. We know there's a big buzz from Australia, New Zealand, and around the world with this one. Derek has been able to do some great things in the octagon. He's an exciting fighter. When you look at this matchup, how do you what do you see your advantages here, and how do you rate what he's been able to do in the UFC so far? A lot of people sort of see him as a bit of a brawler. What's your sort of analysis on him?
Well, I mean, I don't have nothing bad to say about Derek Lewis. I mean, he's not the first main point is he's not a steroid head. Well, I don't know of any, he hasn't been caught. But it's even. It's going to be an even fight, and that's the main thing about it. I mean, my biggest thing is about it being even, him not being on the juice. And the next thing about him is, you know, he took his life from a negative to a positive like me. You know, he's had a bad childhood. Things have gone wrong for him, but he's used fighting to change his life like I have. So, I mean, I can't say anything bad, but give him props. So, you know, in the end, he's pretty similar to me in the end.
What would you say is your prediction for the fight, Mark? From you know, you obviously have a lot of respect for him, from everything that you see from him, and you say it's very even. How do you see this one going?
Well, I need to win this fight. So, regardless of respect, I'm going to go and try and put his head outside the octagon. I'm going to try and knock him out, of course. That's the game plan. I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm just going to go and hurt him and put him out and then move on.
And Mark, before we let you go, we also want to mention your brand Juggernaut. Obviously, we spoke about the bike before, but up on the website, there's a variety of great merchandise, including T-shirts and hoodies. And we even saw Nate Diaz was wearing one of your T-shirts the other day. So when it comes to fans listening to this, we know there's a couple of new pieces out there, and it's pretty cold over here in Melbourne and across Australia. What are a couple of pieces of merchandise that stand out to you that you like, that you can sort of tell the fans about, that they can go check out on the website after this interview? What are a couple of pieces that are your favorites that stand out to you that you can sort of mention for fans to check out?
You can go and check out all my gear on www.jegnt.com. Check out all my fight gear on there. There's hoodies. They're all good quality. I've got a good partner in Melbourne. They do all the AFL and basketball stuff. So Dave and them from down there, they're good. The quality is good. I mean, like I said, it's a business, and I've been working on it for a long time, for a while. And I've had a lot of, like my career of fighting, I had a lot of hiccups with it. But like any good thing, it's going to be, you know, I've kept working at it. You know, like a lot of people say, you know, fall down 10 times, get up 11. That's exactly what I've done with this company, and it was like with my fighting. So I think Juggernaut, you know, is a great brand, and I think it's just getting the right partners to help me with it, and I think I found that. So, you know, go check it out and see if you can buy yourself some and support the movement, you know, the Unstoppable movement, which is good. Going to be looking at doing a lot big things with Juggernaut in the future. So we're talking to Diaz and his crew about doing, a shirt or something together.
Oh, wow.
So, so we just it's good though, just progress and work, so it's good.
Well, there you go, guys. It's a freezing cold winter.
The thing about it.
Yep.
Yeah, the thing about Juggernaut, like I said, I've done it 4 or 5 times. I've been ripped off 4 or 5 times with the brand, but you can't get rid of it. It's still coming.
I think it's a testament to you and your career, Mark, and the way that you've always sort of bounced back and kept on coming. And I mean, I'm excited the fact that you might be doing something with the Diaz brothers and doing some kind of joint T-shirt. So that's great. It's freezing cold here in Melbourne, so make sure to go to jugnt.com. Grab a jumper, grab a hoodie. Make sure to follow Mark on Twitter at MarkHunt1974. Like him on Facebook. Always a lot of fun stuff there. And of course, watch him take on Derek Lewis at UFC New Zealand, June 11th. Tickets are on sale now via Ticketmaster. And Mark, we really do appreciate you coming to the program. We appreciate you obviously voicing everything. We support you 100%. So we're always with you. And again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thanks so much. And guys, a lot of the fans have been writing to me on Facebook. I can't message back. I've been blocked on there, so you probably just see me looking at your message, but I can't reply back because Facebook has blocked me. So I think it's another 3 months when I can get back on. But thanks, guys, for the time, and we'll catch up another time. Thank you so much.
Hey, this is Ariel Helwani, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my 2 favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
All right, guys. Our next guest can be seen weeknight successfully coaching his team to victory in the latest season of The Ultimate Fighter. He's currently set to face Cody Garbrandt on July 8th at UFC 213, where he gets the long-awaited opportunity to win back the UFC Bantamweight belt. However, the bout is up in the air with Cody potentially being injured. He's here to talk about all that and more. TJ Dillashaw, thanks for joining us. Welcome back. How are you today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
So, TJ, set the scene for us. How and when did you exactly find out that you wouldn't be attending the UFC Summer Kickoff press conference?
I didn't find out until I was actually on my way to the airport. My wife got a text message from someone that works for the UFC saying that TJ knows he's not supposed to show up to the press conference, right?
Wow.
And she's like, no, he's actually heading to the airport right now. You know what I mean? So I thought it was a little fishy that my flight just got canceled, and I didn't really, know what was going on. But I was just told that Cody had some things that he wouldn't be able to make it because of some reason. They didn't tell us exactly why.
Wow. What was your what was your reaction? Obviously, your wife tells you, "Hey, TJ, this is off." Take us from there. What was going through your mind?
I think my first initial reaction was the fact that Cody didn't want to show up because of the way he's been looking on TV. He's been showing his true colors on TV, and I didn't think he wanted to be interviewed about it. I didn't think he wanted to be asked about it. I knew that I had a lot of ammunition on him, and just didn't want to show up. But the more I thought about it, that didn't really make sense. Dana doesn't let guys just miss the press conference. He pulled Conor McGregor from UFC 200 because he wasn't showing up to the press conference. So, why would he give Cody any kind of lenience? So I really started thinking about it. My wife started getting my head about it. A couple of my training partners thought, that everyone just thought that for some reason Cody was going to try to pull out of this fight. So I called him out on social media, and sure enough, he answered back saying that his back's hurt and he's heading to Germany to get some procedures done.
Wow. So I'm wondering, obviously, you guys have a lot of things going on between you on The Ultimate Fighter, and we know that, the whole WWE side and trash talk and all that kind of stuff, it's not really your thing. But did you watch the press conference, and did you see how everybody was sort of getting in on it? What did you think when you saw it? Did you kind of miss being there? Did you think, wow, that would have been fun? Or you kind of like, you know what, kind of dodged a bullet there. This would have been a little bit much.
No, I didn't watch the press conference, but I mean, that's how they usually go. They usually see you all on stage just so you guys can talk crap to each other. And it's, yeah, man, I mean, it wasn't like something I was looking forward to doing, but I still wanted to show up. I actually, even though Cody wasn't going to go, I was actually going to continue to go. Even though I got the text and saying he wasn't going to be there, it kind of pissed me off. I was on the way to the airport, so I was going to go anyways, but my flights got canceled. And, once I found out it got canceled, I wasn't going to pay to go out there.
Yeah.
I'm curious, TJ, if you were able to get up there and they sort of weren't expecting to have you up on stage, would you have sort of tried to get your way up there anyway, considering you were originally supposed to be on there? Like if that flight wasn't cancelled, do you think you probably would have gone out there just because you were a bit pissed off and just at least tried to get up on stage with all the other fighters?
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, I do my job. I show up when I'm supposed to. I do things I'm supposed to do, and I feel like I hold myself as a professional. And yeah, if I was there, I would try to get on stage and do my job.
Right.
Someone's got to sell this fight.
Right. Well, what's the gut feeling from your end at the moment? Do you think it'll happen at UFC 213? And mentally, are you still locked into the idea that you're fighting Cody then, or are you sort of preparing for the worst case scenario and already mentally preparing for other options?
I'm preparing for the soonest date, which is July 8th. So I'm gotta stay focused, continue to train, and even though my opponent doesn't seem like he's gonna be able to get there, I still got to be ready for it, Dana says as far as he's concerned, he's still going to be fighting July 8th, but I highly doubt it. Cody seems very mentally weak to me, and he's already making excuses about what's going on with his back. He said that he's been hurt for months and that he was supposed to be cleared March 1st. Well, he was running around looking like an idiot on The Ultimate Fighter, and his back didn't seem to be bothering him then. We did the coaches challenge. He was trying to get in everyone's face, trying to fight then, but now all of a sudden, when we're getting closer to the fight and things are about to get real, he's hurt.
I'm curious, TJ, what exactly did the UFC, what was the exact update from the UFC? Did Dana White call you himself and tell you that this fight will still happen? Or are you sort of going off updates like all the other people where you just see a press conference and see Dana White speaking to the media and that's the only sort of indication that you've gotten?
No. As soon as I put out that post and saw that Cody wrote back about his back, I instantly called Dana and hashed it out with him, and he was saying that he was sending him to Germany to get some procedures done that he's never seen not work. And so he's very confident that Cody would be fighting. I mean, that's as far as I know for now. And then as soon as Dana says he'd hear something, he'd let me know.
Right. And obviously, you don't have too much choice other than to keep training, to keep, putting in your preparation. But at the same time, it's kind of like you're sort of going to the unknown. Is there a time frame for you when you'll know officially if he'll definitely be fit to fight? Did Dana White sort of say, all right, here's the procedure, the recovery time is generally X amount of weeks or days, and is there sort of a cutoff point for you where if you don't hear any updates, you got to sort of make changes to your preparation?
I don't know. I mean, I guess really, obviously I want to know as soon as possible, but yeah, man, I've spent a lot of money on getting my camp set up, getting the right training partners I need, the right coaches, so yeah, man, the sooner I know, the better, because then I could, change up my timeline. I'm going to continue to train, but obviously fight camp's a little bit different. You don't cut any edges. You don't cut any corners. You make sure you get everything done. So, yeah, man, I would definitely like to know, because I would like to know when I'm getting ready for, and that's why I told Dana, like, I'm not going to sit around and in my mind, I'm champion of the world. I didn't lose my belt to Dominic Cruz. I fought the #1 contenders. I still feel like I'm champion. I'm tired of not being called the champ. I want my belt back, and if Cody's not able to fight, if I'm going to have to wait around for Cody, I told him I'd drop down to 25s, and I'd love him to fight Demetrious Johnson and stop his record-breaking history fight. His next fight is the one that breaks the record to make him the most title defenses in UFC history, and I'd love to drop down and put a squash to that.
For sure. And I want to touch on that, but just quickly, TJ, I think a lot of fans and even ourselves, we sort of see the finished product. We see fighters arriving on fight night, and we sort of don't really realize what goes into it. Just take us through it. How much does a championship camp like this cost when you're preparing, for a title fight? What's the cost involved for you?
Everyone handles it differently. I try to make the most gains I possibly can. So, I look for new training partners. Bring in what coaches I feel like I need to for what opponent I'm going against. Same with the training partners, I've been traveling around doing a lot of boxing with some big name boxers. I got to work with Lomachenko, working with Terrence Crawford, trying to get up in the wild card down in Southern California. Working with a new strength conditioning coach, Sam Calavita. I'm working with my old guys as well, but just kind of picking the brains of some new coaches, and he's doing a lot with my diet as well as my strength conditioning and making some big gains, man. So, I'm a student of the game, and I'm looking to expand my mind however I possibly can, and that's to travel the world and training with the best, and really getting into those uncomfortable situations, sparring against new guys, sparring against top level fighters as well as boxers, and get out of your comfort zone. It's easy to do the same thing day in and day out, but to travel the world and put yourself in those uncomfortable situations is what makes you a better martial artist.
Let's go back to this Demetrious Johnson fight, because, I mean, a lot of people got excited when they heard about it. What exactly was Dana White's response when you said that that's a fight that you're interested in? And if this Cody fight doesn't happen, is there still a chance Dana tries to make this fight happen?
I really hope so. I mean, he loved it. He loved the sound of it. I mean, he loved the story that I put behind it. You know, that I'm willing to. I mean, it's gonna be a big sacrifice. I'm gonna have to cut a lot of weight. I could do it. I'm not a big 35 pounder, but it's definitely, I'm lean. You know, I'm not like I'm not carrying a bunch of extra weight that I can't use. You know, so it's gonna take a whole different style of training. I told him, I was like, look, man, I'm willing to drop down to fight Demetrious at 25s. You know, he's trying to break this record. It's a big deal. No one wants to see him fight someone that he doesn't know or someone he's already beaten for this record. Let's make this thing like a big deal. You know, let's put some money behind this thing. He's talking about how much money he wants to make on his next fight. Well, he's not going to do that by fighting number 8s and 10s, you know. In my mind, the guy that deserves a shot the most is Joseph Benavidez. Joseph Benavidez has the shot the most to be able to put Demetrious down, but Joseph Benavidez just got put on the shelf for the knee injury, you know, and I would never want to step in front of that guy on anything what he's got going on, but with circumstances going on, I don't want Demetrious just to take an easy fight to try to break the record. We should make this thing the real deal, and he's talking about how he's pound for pound the best in the world, then prove it.
Well, I think you make a really solid case, TJ. I mean, you know, there's a lot of rematches left for Demetrious, and you're a fresh face, obviously, you know, making a sacrifice cut down to 125. What did you make of Demetrious Johnson's response where he basically said that it wasn't a super fight and that there are other contenders who have earned the shot before? What did you make of that?
It's not a super fight. I'm coming down to 25s. It's a challenger at his weight class.
Yeah.
That will give him the biggest challenge possible, and that's what he's scared of. You know, he wants to take an easier fight that's going to give him the record so that he can have the most title defenses in UFC history. But that doesn't mean anything when you're not fighting the most worthy opponents. You know, you can't call yourself the best pound for pound fighter if you're going to dodge me. You know, I'm the toughest fight for him. I got the utmost respect for Demetrious Johnson. You know, he's a great competitor inside the octagon. He's a great human being outside the octagon. I have a lot of respect for him. But this comes down to, you know, selling a fight. He wants to make some big money. Let's do it, man. This is about as big as it's going to get for him.
And this would still be for the July 8th card, if possible. Is that right? If Cody falls out, would you still be aiming to possibly do it on that card?
I mean, I think he'd probably want some more time. I don't think he's been training either. I think shooting for that John Jones and Cormier card would be amazing. You know, Dana already said he doesn't want to make them guys the headliner, so why not put me and Demetrious in front of them? You know, what bigger fight could you have in front of those two guys besides me and Demetrious? You know, it gives them a little bit more time to get prepared. It gives me more time to change my body. You know, right now I'm still in the process of putting strength and size on. You know, like I said, I'm not a big 35 pounder, so the beginning of my camps are always getting bigger and putting that good strength on so that I can cut the weight later in camp. But you know, it'd be real hard to make it July 8th. If I had a couple extra weeks to start changing the way I'm training, changing the way I'm eating, it'd be no problem at all. You know, I'm a professional. I can make the weight.
Yeah, for sure. And TJ, believe us, we'll be at UFC 214. So if you wanna fight on that card, we'd be more than happy to go over there and then obviously cover that. And just wondering, how do you feel you match up with Demetrious? I know this is kind of fresh, but have you had a chance to really think much about what a fight between the two of you would look like?
Absolutely, man. I mean, my plan was to get my belt back first and foremost, you know, and to beat Cody and to shut his mouth, you know. But I've always been thinking that I would love to be able to drop down and fight Demetrious. You know, he's pound for pound the best fighter in the world. My goal is to be that pound for pound best fighter in the world. The only way to do that is to beat the best. So I've definitely thought about fighting Demetrious. You know, it's crossed my mind multiple times. And I think I match up with him very well. You know, I can match up with his stamina. He beats a lot of guys with how much stamina he's got and how hard he works and how hard he pushes. And he's a safe fighter. You know, he stays real composed and does things very safe. You know, I feel I'm the better grappler. I'd be stronger than him. I'd be able to push the pace just like he does. And my footwork, you know, he gets away with using a lot of footwork, and I'd be able to keep up with him. The guy's fast. Don't get me wrong. He's super fast and good, but you know, I think I match up with him really well.
If you sort of had to look at who was the bigger challenger, Cody or Demetrious, which one do you sort of lean towards as a tougher challenge?
Oh, Demetrious for sure. You know, he's just so well-rounded and so fast, and has proven it. You know, he's very technical. It's a tough fight. It's a very tough fight. Don't get me wrong. I mean, but that's why I want it. You know, I want that fight because of that reason. He's pound for pound best. He's a puzzle that people haven't been able to really figure out lately. You know, he's been getting better and better with each fight. And, I think he's the greater challenge.
A while ago on our show, Cody said that he had a hit list that basically consisted of Cruz, yourself, and John Oleinik. I believe we've spoken to you about it in the past. Considering the state of everything, is it fair to say that, you know, if you had a hit list, yours would basically consist of Cody, the Cruz rematch, and then Demetrious?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Those are the top 3 guys that I would love to fight. Absolutely.
Is there?
And it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, think about it. You got a champ of the world. You got Dominic Cruz, the big name, and Demetrious Johnson. Those are all great names to fight.
And let's say this fight did come together and you were able to beat Demetrious and become the champion. Is that a goal of yours to hold both the bantamweight and the flyweight belt? Is that sort of, I suppose you're doing it the other way around. You mentioned how you wanted to beat Cody, become champion, and then drop down. But is that always sort of been a goal for you?
I mean, 135 is my belt. You know, I still believe that. I still believe I'm still the best of that weight class. So, I mean, that is my goal in hand, is to get that back. But, you know, this guy's going to go and get his back hurt, you know, and he's got a hurt back. He's got to get it fixed. So I'm not going to sit around and wait for that title fight. Like I said, I want a belt. And 25 is a great story, you know. So all I know now is that I want to fight Demetrious Johnson, and we'll figure it out from there.
Love it. We love that
the guy's trying to break the all-time record. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a huge, huge fight. It's a great platform. I can make the weight. Let's give him a real challenge. Let's see if he's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. You know, I mean, who's he going to fight next? Joseph Benavidez is out, so who's he got? You know what I mean? Like, nothing really makes sense. I mean, I am the next in line. Let's do it.
Speaking of that, just quickly before we move off Demetrious, I mean, he's obviously had some amazing title defenses, but most notably, especially in his last fight, you know, the ratings quite haven't been there. When you kind of look at what he does in the octagon compared to, you know, a lot of people not really watching his fights, what's your reaction to that? What do you think sort of has gone wrong from him in the public perception that he doesn't get as many, you know, eyeballs on his fights as a lot of the other champions?
You know, I like that Demetrious doesn't go out there and talk trash. You know, he's a respectable human being and a great professional fighter. And it's not the only reason why his fights aren't selling. It's because there's not a story behind anything. There's no build-up to where this would be the build-up that he's been missing out on. You know, another high-profile fighter making a sacrifice to try to beat him breaking the record. You know, like this is it. There doesn't have to be any trash talk. This could be the best 2 fighters getting after it, and that's going to sell tickets. I mean, I think this is going to be one of the most exciting fights that they can put together. You know, I mean, I think we should headline in front of John Jones and Cormier and make this card ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great addition to the card, TJ. We appreciate the time you're giving us, TJ. Before we let you go, obviously we've got to talk about The Ultimate Fighter. Talk to us about that. Have you been watching it on TV now that it's airing? And just wondering, what is it like for you rewatching and reliving all those moments again?
Yeah, man, I have been watching it. You know, I mean, it's been fun reliving it. You know, it just kind of shows how hard I worked. You know, I really enjoyed coaching Ultimate Fighter, and not because of the drama, but I enjoyed actually being a coach. I enjoy coaching. I've always enjoyed it. You know, when I was at Alpha Male, I was coaching the pro practices 3 times a week, and I really enjoyed it. You know, it was a lot of work. I couldn't be a trainer and a fighter at the same time, but you know, at this point in time, I knew that I didn't have a fight coming up, so I really got to soak up being a coach, and feel like I did really good at it, man, and I enjoyed it. So it's nice to be able to relive it and re-see it, and I hope everyone else gets to see, you know, how much passion I have for it.
A lot of people have expressed that they feel like Cody's been a bit too relentless and aggressive towards you on the show, almost like you're being ganged up on, and it made a lot of people kind of gravitate towards you and emphasize with you. What do you think of that sentiment, and have you sort of felt that shift from the fans?
I mean, I felt it before the show happened. I mean, this has been going on a lot longer than that. The world just gets to see it now. You know what I mean? I mean, this is stuff I've been dealing with on a daily basis with these guys trying to be dicks on social media and trying to call me out and just trying to, like, team up and make up these stories and do what they have to do to try to badmouth me, you know? But, you know, true colors come out. Eventually, it'll all be shown. And, yeah, man, it's nice to actually see everyone else getting to see what's going down, you know?
Yeah, and I think some of the other biggest feedback has been basically that you're doing a tremendous job as a coach, and obviously at the moment, Team Dillashaw or Team Killishaw is undefeated. There were obviously quite a few times on the show where things got physical, and namely the throat grab in the first episode. And I think the way you sort of handled it also speaks to your professionalism. But what is going through your mind during those moments, and how are you able to stay so calm and professional throughout those altercations? Because there's other times where sort of he gets in your face and you're able to just laugh it off.
I mean, pretty much it just comes down to being a professional and being a good person, man. I mean, really, my parents raised me to be the way that I am, and I know that there's kids watching me that look up to me. I got my family watching me, and I just want to be able to look back on my career and know I handled myself the way that I wanted to. That I wasn't a sellout, didn't act like a jerk. He might be able to get away with the stuff that he does. He might have been raised that way, or that's just his environment, but it just doesn't sit well with me. So it's easy. For me, it's like, let him look like a fool, let him act like a fool, stay professional, and do what I can,
We caught an interview the other day where Cody mentioned that you sometimes send him private messages. I'm just curious, is that true? And have you messaged him at all since you found out about his back? And have you guys sort of been talking behind the scenes a little bit?
Well, once again, that is a complete lie. I hardly even go on social media anyways. I mean, it's not like I go on there and answer any comments or doing that kind of stuff anyways. I mean, it's just one of his other tactics to try to create stories. This never ending with these alpha male guys, and Cody especially. He'll say whatever he needs to, but no, not true whatsoever.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, overall, TJ, I mean, so far 4-0. You look like you're doing great on as far as your team goes. Overall, how do you view this? How do you view this sort of experience of Tough? Was it a positive experience for you, and anything you would change when you're looking back on it?
Yeah, man, super positive experience. It just kind of proved to me that I made the complete right choice with my life and what I'm doing. I'm not living that childish frat boy life anymore with Team Alpha Male. I've moved past that. You can see how much of a better coach I am. It's just, I had a lot of reserves going into the show, not wanting to do it, just knowing the drama that was going to be with the show. And I've always wanted to coach Ultimate Fighter, but, obviously coaching with Alpha Male wasn't something that I was very pumped about. But I'm super glad that I did it. A lot came of it, and like I said, it just reinstated that the choice I made was correct.
All right. Well, before we let you go, we know you're a man who likes to live his life and be active. You've always got a bunch of business ventures going on. You're out hunting or living the Rambo life. Any new stories you can tell us from your outdoor adventures, or anything cool coming up in the life of TJ Dillashaw that the fans should hear about?
Nothing hits mind. I mean, since I talked to you guys last, all I've done was coach Ultimate Fighter and been training since. I'm building the house that's just about to be done in Colorado. That it's going to be lakefront property that I'm excited to be able to wake up every morning, go jump on my boat, do some wakeboarding, maybe a little bit of fishing here and there, but perfectly fits my lifestyle. But, other than that, it's just been traveling the world and training, getting into the boxing world a little bit.
Well, there you go, TJ. All right. Well, we really appreciate you squeezing us in. We know you're a busy man, guys. Don't forget to follow him on Twitter and Instagram at TJ Dillashaw. A lot of fun stuff there. If you like knives, there's a lot of stuff going on with knives that TJ Dillashaw is always showing off. He's got a crazy knife collection, always doing things like hunting and, like you mentioned, wakeboarding and crazy outdoor activities. And TJ, we got our fingers and toes crossed for you that this fight pans out with Cody on July 8th with no issues. And if not, we hope that you get this Demetrious Johnson fight. And we've been more than happy to see you at UFC 214. So at the moment, the fight is Cody Garbrandt, July 8th, UFC 213 in Las Vegas. And again, TJ, we appreciate the time.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, guys. This is Brian Stan. You're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Well, our next guest needs no formal introduction. You know him from his awesome work on UFC on Fox. He's a senior UFC writer for Fox Sports and UFC.com. Also, nerdcoremovement.com, the place to go for all your pop culture stuff, TV shows, movies, bang, it's there. And he does great talking about all that stuff. I'm, of course, talking about Damon Martin, our buffet buddy, back on Submission Radio. Damon, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Well, the pleasure is always ours, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about in this crazy world of MMA. And, of course, we'll kick off by talking about UFC 211, an event that really delivered in terms of exciting fights and a bit of controversy as well. We'll kick this party off by talking about Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier. Of course, the fight ended in controversy. People don't know what to think. And before I sort of get your guys' thoughts, I just want to quickly mention that Herb Dean was on the MMA Hour and sort of explained his decision to make it a no contest. Per rule, if the referee deems the foul to be accidental, the result of the foul is a no contest. If the referee believes the foul or fouls are intentional, it's a disqualification. So Herb Dean actually said that I can't imagine a way where he'd be able to see his hands or knees or his knees. I believe that he was fighting in earnest and he thought that the fight was not grounded. The fighter was not grounded. There's no way I could say that for certain. I attempted to warn him before he went in with that knee, but it was loud in there, and I can't say he heard me. I don't believe that he was trying to fight outside of the rules when he threw that knee. I can't say that he was. So, Casper, knowing what we know now, knowing what Herb Dean said, with all the confusion out there, what is your thought on this controversy and the official sort of ruling for this fight?
All right, well, let's set the scene. And for the record, it's funny, Herb Dean's making the rounds. He did the MMA Hour and he did the Luke Thomas show. I actually caught the Luke Thomas show, and I heard his explanation there as well. So basically, the fight's going great. It's a really, really fun fight, heading for a classic. Then they get against the cage. Here's what happens. Eddie threw 3 knees against the cage. And this is after watching it many, many times in slow motion. The first knee glanced Dustin's head. The second one was blocked. And the third one was basically a direct hit. Now, Dustin's fingertips, not his hand, were down for the first 2. His knee and hand were down for the third. And as I believe you mentioned, or at least Herb Dean mentioned, in Texas, the old rules apply. So Dustin was technically a downed opponent the entire time. So theoretically, you would think that it would be a very clear DQ win for Dustin. Like you mentioned, here's where it gets interesting. Herb said that if a fighter's weight isn't actually placed on their hand, then they are not a downed opponent. So if you watch the video, Dustin's weight clearly wasn't actually on his hand. His fingertips weren't keeping him up. If you removed his fingertips, if you kicked it out from under him, he'd still be standing. His legs and the fence were what was keeping him up. So then it becomes a question of, was the third knee intentional or not? Herb Dean basically said that for the foul to be intentional, it'd have to be like, say, Wes Sims versus Frank Mir, where it's clearly against the rules, you're stomping someone, there's no way there was no misunderstanding. And like you mentioned, Eddie Alvarez's head was over Dustin's back, and so it would have been very hard for him to see whether the knee was legal. I think the one thing about that is that when Dustin sort of dropped and he took a knee, I mean, I think that's kind of a giveaway, but considering that it is a fight, considering that Eddie's eyes essentially closing shut, it's loud, all those kinds of things, I don't really think Eddie did it on purpose. And in that sense, with that explanation, with what Herb Dean said, I kind of have to agree with his ruling. Whether the rules should be changed or not, whether there's instant replay that should be there, I think is a different story. But based on what Herb Dean said and the way he explained it, I wasn't as outraged as I initially was. I'm curious what you think, Damon.
Well, I understand the ruling, and I heard what Herb Dean said, and I think Herb Dean is the best in business, so I don't want to go against what he said. But we can argue about the first 2 knees. I think that is the debate in my mind, because at that point, with the fingertips being down or the hand being down, that being an issue for whether or not he was completely a downed opponent. It's the third knee, the one that landed basically the knockout, when Dustin had both knees on the ground and his arm on the ground. At that point, he's a downed opponent, and I don't like the idea that Eddie couldn't tell the difference between a downed opponent or not a downed opponent at that point. The third knee is the one that I have the most problem with, because at that point, Dustin is completely down on the mat. Now, we can argue all day about the weight on the fingertips or all those different things that were going on. The third knee was egregiously wrong, in my opinion. He was down. He was clearly down. I understand you're in the heat of the moment, but again, heat of the moment doesn't excuse you from the rules. And in the rules in this case was he was a downed opponent and it was an illegal strike. Now, if Dustin had been allowed to continue, this isn't a conversation we're going to have, but he was not allowed to continue. And Dustin told me when I talked to him yesterday that even if the doctor had cleared him, his coach, Mike Brown, said he probably would have stopped the fight because he knew Dustin wasn't right. He knew Dustin did not have his faculties about him and would not have had time to actually recover in that few moments he had on, once the fight was paused. So in that particular instance, I think it should have been a disqualification. And I don't think Eddie Alvarez is a dirty fighter. I don't think he's just a bad guy or anything. I think he got in the heat of the moment. He was throwing knees. He didn't stop when that third knee threw and when obviously Dustin was on the ground. And he's not the first guy to do it. And he's clearly not going to be the last guy to do it. But in this particular instance, I think it should have been a disqualification, not because I want to see Eddie Alvarez lose, just because it was his foul, his illegal strike, that caused an end to the contest. And in that particular instance, and when I say, the accidental knee, he threw 3 of them in a row. So clearly he was aiming up and knew what he was throwing. You know what I mean? And if he's doing that, then you got to, it's different if a guy is falling to the ground or if a guy is bent over, even in the situation like Mousasi and Weidman was, where Mousasi had him kind of bent over and kind of picked him up to throw the knees. That's kind of like skirting the line a little bit. That's why I didn't really feel bad about Chris Weidman, when they said it's legal, because it was legal. Those were legal knees. In this case, it was pretty egregious, especially on that third knee, the one that kind of knocked him out, because he was down on the ground, laying on the ground, and you can tell the difference. I mean, the guy, you're throwing a knee at that point, the guy's down. I don't care heat of the moment or not. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. So I think it was a foul, and I think it should have been a disqualification, and that's nothing whatsoever against Eddie Alvarez. Like I said, I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think he's a dirty fighter, but he did foul his opponent, and the guy wasn't able to continue.
My problem here is obviously, Herb Dean's explanation really made sense. I'm like, all right, it makes sense what happened here. But my problem is with the rules here. I mean, let's put ourselves in the shoes of a fighter, for example, and we are fighting, let's say, by the old rules in Dallas. Are you seriously expecting me to make the decision of my opponent is right now on the fingers and I can throw a knee, or, all right, he's actually properly down? I mean, in the heat of a fight, as a fighter, are you expected to make that difference? Because I know if I was fighting, I know even when I'm sparring in the ring, it's difficult to figure out what's going on in your head and what kind of combinations you're going to throw. So that knee, I mean, if it's legal, if someone is on the ground, if their weight distribution is on their back legs, and technically the ref wouldn't say that he's a down opponent, well, I'm throwing that knee because that's a super effective strike, and that's it. The fight's probably going to be over if I hit it. But at the same time, how the hell am I going to be able to make the decision whether it's legal or not? Do I just not throw it because there's a good chance there's more weight on his fingers? The whole thing just kind of makes no sense to me. And then if you're a downed opponent, right, and you put your hand down, you're not expecting to get kneed in the head. But how much force are you putting on your hand? Is there a certain way now that you end up being downed? I know there's a lot of fighters that actually, if the old rules are on, they'll be putting down their hand and they'll expect there to be no illegal strikes. So I think there's just a lot of confusion from the fighters' end on the rules. And in that case, if there are places like Dallas that are going to be using these old rules and no one really knows what the hell is going on, I mean, does someone owe someone in the commission, someone somewhere, does someone have to sit down and say, hey, we have to change these rules ASAP? Because, I mean, fighters are reading what Herb Dean said, and I suppose they're adapting their fight style to if they fight on the old rules according to what he said. But there's just no way to absolutely know when someone's down and someone's not, especially if you're in the heat of the moment. So it's just a really weird situation to be in. I don't know. What do you guys think about these rules and what's going on right now?
Well, I mean, I think listen, in a perfect world, I don't think knees on the ground should be illegal in the first place. You know what I mean? I think that I think it should be, they should be allowed to throw knees to a downed opponent regardless. I mean, I think it's a dumb rule, but that's the rule that's in place right now. And it's the same argument I had with people when they were talking about Kelvin Gastelum losing a win over marijuana. Yes, he broke the rules, and I don't have a problem with him being fined or even suspended. I just didn't think I don't think he should have a win taken away, but he still broke the rules. There's got to be some kind of punishment, as much as I believe marijuana shouldn't be considered a performance-enhancing drug. But this is the rule we're in. This is where we're at right now. So as of right now, the rule is that, that would have been a legal strike. But the thing about the Dustin Poirier fight that makes it a little different is that third knee strike, the one that did the most damage, would have been illegal under the old set of rules or the new set of rules. Because the new set of rules, you have to have 3 points of contact on the ground, meaning you can't just play that hand down, kind of game where your one hand is on the mat, and that means you're a quote unquote down, you're a down fighter. Under the new rules, that no longer applies. But Dustin was completely down on 2 legs. He was down on both knees at that point, so that was an illegal strike either way. But the whole thing with these commissions having different sets of rules, and it's, you fight in Texas, it's one set of rules. You fight in New York, it's a different set of rules. Yeah, it's got to be changed. These commissions need to move faster to adopt these rules and regulations, because not only is it confusing for us watching it, it's got to be confusing for the fighters. It's got to be confusing for the judges. I mean, let's not forget, some of this goes back into the judging as well, as far as like handing out 10-8 rounds. I mean, listen, this is, as Brian Stan said on Saturday night, we're better than this. We should absolutely aspire to be better than than this, and these commissions need to get off their asses and actually approve these rules, ratify them, and get them done, because it's not just the UFC. I'm quite sure this is happening in Bellator and other organizations. So yeah, it's got to change, and they got to do it soon, because this is not the first instance we've had this year of that happening, and I think we're going to see more and more as the year goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And if judges or referees or commentators don't understand, or fighters don't understand what's going on in there, then you got an issue with your rules, and you got to get all on the same page. But anyway, let's move up the card to Frankie Edgar versus Yair Rodriguez. A lot of people believe this is going to be Yair's big night, where he was going to beat Frankie Edgar and really make a statement in the division. However, Frankie showed us that he is still the man, being able to TKO him in round 2. Casper, what was your thoughts on the fight?
Man, I was just happy that for once I had an accurate fight pick. It doesn't happen often. I don't get many chances to say I told you so. But this is definitely a case of me being able to say that, and I really didn't want to. It was basically a gamble that didn't pay off for the UFC. I mean, had Yair beaten Frankie, he'd instantly be a fresh contender that the division desperately needs and in line for the next title shot. Instead, he got destroyed by a guy who was a terrible stylistic matchup. I actually didn't think it would be that one-sided. I thought it would be a little bit back and forth, and I mentioned on the previous show that, you know, Yair's always been taken down by his opponents, and I think given that Frankie Edgar is the best wrestler by far that he's faced, this is going to be no different. I didn't expect the TKO to be so brutal. I didn't expect the ground and pound to be so brutal. So it was a huge win and a huge statement for Frankie Edgar to sort of announce that, you know, he's still here. Granted, it was against a guy that got, you know, rushed a little bit too quickly. But it's a bit of an issue, because now you've got Frankie Edgar ranked at number 2, and you would better hope that Holloway beats Aldo, because then you have your next title fight set up a lot easier, because if Aldo wins, you have 0 immediate contenders. Had Yair won, he would have been perfect. He would have been a shoo-in for the next title shot. But from 3 to 10, you've got Ricardo Lamas, Cub Swanson, Korean Zombie, Anthony Pettis is still there, and he's not even in the division anymore. Yair Rodriguez at number 7, Jeremy Stevens, Brian Ortega, and Dennis Bermudez. So it's not really fun times in the featherweight division at the moment. I think that with Frankie Edgar, he's basically got to kind of wait around to see what happens. If Aldo wins, he's got to take another fight. If Holloway wins, great. He's in there for the next title shot. And I think with Yair Rodriguez, he needs to go back to a guy, say like Jeremy Stevens, a guy who has a wrestling background but is predominantly a striker, and a guy who, you know, Yair could potentially look really good against and sort of build himself and win back some of that confidence. What do you think, Damon?
Yeah, and I'm with you, Casper. I can proudly say I told you so as well on that one. I thought Frankie Edgar would win that fight, and I actually thought it was going to be a blowout, to be honest. I just didn't think Yair Rodriguez was ready for that level of competition. I think Yair Rodriguez is a super talented kid, but again, let's not discount the wins he had. I mean, he had a split decision win over Alex Caceres and a dominant win over not quite BJ Penn. Yeah. Jumping from that to Frankie, remember what Frankie Edgar did to BJ Penn 2.5-3 years ago before he retired? I mean, come on now. Like, you know, that to me, that, and listen, here's the thing. I don't blame the UFC for making the match, because I hear a lot of people now saying, oh, they should have never put him in there. It was too much too soon. Trust me, no one was saying that before the fight happened. Everyone was applauding this matchup. Man, what a great fight. Here we get to see what Yair Rodriguez is making, you know, what he's made of. It's the passing of the torch and all this stuff. So for anyone that says it's a bad matchup now, you're just playing revisionist history because it went the way it went. But the fact is, he looked like, listen, I was in Dallas. I heard the amount of people picking Yair Rodriguez, and I'm not talking about fans. I'm talking about journalists and other fighters. I mean, I talked to a lot of people last week, and a lot of people were picking Yair Rodriguez, and that doesn't happen by accident. So he definitely should have had that fight. We just found out real quick that Yair wasn't quite there yet, and Frankie is not ready to be put out to pasture. So Frankie dominated him. It was a very lopsided fight, very much like that Cub Swanson fight he had a couple of years ago, where he just took him down and just bludgeoned him for 2 straight rounds until it was stopped. As far as what happens next in the division, yeah, I'm with you. I think the UFC better be hoping and praying that Max Holloway beats Jose Aldo, because Max Holloway and Frankie Edgar is a really interesting fight, and it's something new, and it's something we haven't seen before, and I think that's a no-brainer, because if Jose Aldo wins, the options are pretty much Jose Aldo versus Cub Swanson 2, or that's it, because there is no one else right now in the division you can give that title shot to, because he already beat Ricardo Lamas, he already beat the Korean Zombie, and no one else is really deserving right now, unless you want to do the third part with Frankie Edgar. So yeah, if Holloway wins, it's got to be Edgar. If it's not, then it's got to be Cub Swanson when he's healthy again. And again, I can sell that fight, because, you know, Cub fought Aldo, whatever it was, like 7 years ago, and yeah, it was a flash knockout, but, you know, lots changed since then. You'd hope it'd be a better fight the second time around.
And I mean, I almost feel like Frankie heard a lot of these predictions and thought, all right, we'll see what happens on Fight Now. And then bang, and put on that performance. It was really good. And I don't want to say I told you so to all the people that picked against him as well. But yeah, I think a lot of, well, all three of us picked for Frankie Edgar, which actually ended up happening on the night. And it's interesting how a lot of divisions at the moment don't really have clear-cut contenders. This isn't just featherweight. There's a bunch across the board that having issues with this as well. But let's jump to Maia Masvidal, a division where Tyron Woodley is trying to figure out who he's fighting next. Guys, this fight, back and forth, a bit of discussion, though, because, look, Damian Maia, he was able to control Masvidal on the ground, but Masvidal, when they were standing up in a lot of the rounds, he was able to cause a lot of damage. So this brings up the, I suppose, debate of did the right man get his hand raised? Damon, when you look at the fight and Damian Maia winning it, did you agree with the decision?
Yeah, I agree with the decision. I thought Damian Maia controlled more of the fight and had more dominant positions throughout the fight. I thought the right guy won. I really didn't see any kind of controversy when it was over. I thought, the only controversy was whether you scored at 29-28 for Maia or 30-27 was Maia. That's the way I felt about it, watching it live in the arena, and then watching it again at home. I thought the same thing. I thought Maia won. He was hanging on Masvidal a lot during the fight, and Masvidal did a great job playing defense, but defense doesn't equate offense. It's kind of like stopping a takedown. Yes, it's a great move that you stopped a guy's takedown, but you didn't do anything offensively. You just played defense and didn't allow him to take you down. You need to capitalize on that position, and that's where you get points. So Masvidal played great defense, and yeah, he landed a few shots, but at the end of the day, he really didn't do much damage. Maia was still coming after him, and Maia fought the Maia fight. He did what he was supposed to do. He just couldn't put him away, and that's a credit to Jorge Masvidal, but ultimately the right guy won. I thought Maia controlled the action, for the most part throughout all 15 minutes, and I thought he deserved the win.
I'm with you on that one, Damon. I mean, it really was a razor-close fight, and I was still impressed. I know a lot of people were sort of, shitting on Jorge, saying, oh, you talked a big game, he said this and that. But, I mean, this is a guy that's going in there, and Damian Maia, and, he's destroying guys. And I think Jorge put up a really good fight. He had Maia in some, he had him in some trouble. I believe it was at the end of the first round. He was landing some decent strikes. And so I don't think Jorge really loses too much steam here. I think the fact that he's a guy who's going to be, likely competing for the title next, and, he put up a really close fight and had a split decision lost to him, I don't think he really loses anything. What I'm curious about now, and I respect Jorge a lot for, already he's calling people out. He wants Neil Magny, saying that he has vaginitis. He says he wants Wonderboy as well. I have a feeling, honestly, that Wonderboy will be getting the winner of Cowboy or Lawler, and I think in the meantime you give Jorge Masvidal Neil Magny. I'm curious to hear what you think, Dennis, about who won. But man, I got to be honest, just looking at Maia and his future, it would not surprise me at all if Maia gets passed up again. And I'm certainly not rooting for that to happen. I want him to get the title shot. He has deserved it for an eternity. But man, Miesha Tate and Frankie Edgar, they'll both guarantee title shots that never materialize. And you were there at the post-fight presser, Damon, where Maia basically said he's not really stressing about it. I think he undoubtedly deserves it, but you've got to wonder what's going on with the GSP in the midst of this Bisping fight being allegedly, being off. Does GSP fight Woodley instead? We know that Woodley would want it. Does Nick Diaz somehow end up, being convinced to face Woodley? And I think that honestly, if Maia gets the shot, I would love for him to do that, but if he does, it's probably because the UFC couldn't get an alternative. And that's not a shot at Maia. I just think that going by recent history and all the rumors of GSP and Diaz being offered shots recently already, I kind of think that's where the UFC would like to go. And if he does get the shot, good for him. He deserves it, but I think that's why it would be.
And we're talking about potential matchups for Jorge. I mean, it's a bit of a drop in rankings, but I really think maybe a fight with Gunnar Nelson could be a good one on the cards because Gunnar's a big name over there in Europe, and if they do it, they'll probably headline some kind of fight night over there. Gunnar's got a big fan base. It will be a good opportunity for Masvidal to have a very interesting fight. Two guys with interesting striking backgrounds and a matchup that would be quite interesting to watch.
Would this be after Ponzinibbio if Gunnar gets by him, then sort of put him up against Jorge and give Gunnar that step up in competition?
I think so. If he has a quick turnaround, I mean, it's a bit of a disappointment with Neil Magny and Stephen Thompson not wanting. Well, Neil Magny looking like he's not interested, and Stephen Thompson looking like he's not interested. But if I'm in Stephen Thompson's shoes, and if it is what you mentioned, Casper, he's waiting for that win between Lawler and Cowboy. It makes a little bit of sense to wait for that bigger money matchup. But It's just interesting. I mean, we keep piping on about this, but in the divisions, the matchups, it's harder and harder to make these interesting matchups. And I think Masvidal makes a lot of interesting ones in welterweight. So I think the UFC will use him wisely. And just on that, I don't think he lost steam. And I agreed with the decision of Maia winning as well. Let's move on, though, guys, up the card a little bit. Joanna Jędrzejczyk was able to solidify herself as one of the greatest champions in UFC history with another big win at UFC 211. Casper, what did you think of her performance against Andrade and what she was able to do?
Yeah, I mean, she passed her supposedly biggest test with flying colors. I really thought that we spoke to Bas Rutten just before, and I mentioned this. And I said this on the previous show. I thought it was going to be a really hard-fought battle, kind of like the Claudia Gadelha fight, and Joanna would come out victorious, maybe 48-47. And like most of her recent fights, there was a little bit of adversity. She got caught with that big left to the forehead, but really, really nothing compared to some of her previous fights. It was yeah, there was far less adversity than what I expected. Jessica was completely overmatched, and Joanna basically played Matador and just picked her apart at will. Joanna's jab and body shots, even her head kicks were brilliant. It was a showcase performance, and I gotta say, credit to Jessica for never once losing the will. She lost clearly, but she displayed her toughness. I think she won a lot of fans. She was on a big stage, and afterwards she proposed to her partner, so that was a really nice moment. And we're really seeing, I think, Joanna come into her own. I think that people always talk about fighters moving to big camps, and we've seen fighters where it's almost always been the story where whenever they move to a new camp, either their first fight doesn't completely go their way, or it's a preview of things to come. And I think, against Carolina in her last fight, Joanna was sort of getting her feet wet, getting used to all the coaching stuff, and I don't think she had really a lot of time to really get in with everybody. And now we saw a lot of improvements in her, and I think we're really sort of showing, she's still evolving in front of our very eyes. And it's interesting that Coach Kami is leaving. I think it's Kami. Who is the wrestling coach that's leaving ATT? Help me out here, Damon.
It's Kami Barzini is his name.
Kami Barzini. There you go. It's interesting that he's leaving ATT, and he's obviously someone who Joanna credits for improving her takedown defense tremendously. And, it was great. It was great against this fight, especially against someone as strong as Andrade. So she said she'll go out and she'll continue to train with him, even if he's not at ATT. So, yeah, it was just a showcase performance. I'm curious what you think, Damon.
Yeah, Damon, just before you kick that in, I'm also curious because you spent some time at ATT, so you were actually there firsthand, being able to see these relationships that she's having with these coaches and the training that she's doing. So from that perspective as well, if you could give us some insight as to what that looked like from being at the camp before the fight as well.
Yeah, I spent a week down in American Top Team with Joanna. I went down there specifically for Joanna, and it was a real insight into her training and her preparation, and to see it all come out in the fight was pretty amazing. I mean, some of the stuff I didn't write about, of course, because it was game planning and strategy that they were kind of letting me in on, but obviously I wasn't going to spoil that before the fight. But it was almost like a video game, watching her do it in training. She was practicing that long straight punch. She was practicing that front kick. She was practicing the head kick. She was practicing setting up her head kicks and then using those long, that long reach and jab and everything to keep Andrade away. She was doing all of that in training camp, and then to see her put it into motion in the fight was pretty amazing. I mean, it was a picture perfect game plan put together by her coaches. I saw her work a lot with Ketel Kubas, who is her Muay Thai coach. Phenomenal striking coach. He works with a lot of the guys down at American Top Team, and it was really cool to see all that come together. And then Mike Brown kind of mold everything, and then obviously Kami was right there, kind of playing backup the entire way. And I had a chance to talk to all of them about it. And one of the biggest things they told me while I was down there was when they got Joanna before the Carolina fight, she was only there for about 5 or 6 weeks. So all they wanted to do in that first training camp was just don't lose anything. Don't change anything. Just allow Joanna to stay kind of even keel, stay even, even pace, so she goes into the title fight and wins. Because they didn't want to start throwing new things at her and then somehow screw up a big title fight like she had on at UFC 205. Once they got her back into camp after the fight with Carolina, then they had some time to start adding in some new tricks, start throwing some new weapons into the arsenal. And I think that's what we saw on Saturday night was all those new things that she's learning at American Top Team. And like I said, seeing what she was doing in training and sparring, hitting pads, all those different things she was doing, to see it come out in the fight was just amazing. I mean, it was literally like I said, it was like watching a video game. You see it play out, and then you see the replay of it in the actual game. It was crazy. I do know she was dealing with an injury. I saw a little bit of that down at American Top Team. She had a back injury. She was dealing with a little bit of that, but she fought through it. And it was amazing too, because, Joanna, one thing I learned about Joanna, two things I learned about Joanna, one from her coaches, which is, one, the girl does not understand 50%. And what I mean by that is I talked to Matt Schnell and I talked to a couple of other sparring partners that she had. She goes 110% at all times. Like, one of the things, I think it was Matt Schnell who told me, he said, when you spar some guys at American Top Team, they'll hit a 3-punch combination and they'll kind of sit back and they'll admire their work a little bit. They'll kind of, they're like, I hit you with that 3-punch combination. They'll back out and then kind of come again. He's like, Joanna is on you like a pit bull. If she hits a combination, she sees you backing up. She's going to continue to throw and continue to throw and continue to throw. You do not get a moment of rest with her. And it was crazy to see that in the fight too, because every single time Jessica stepped forward, she just got hit with 2, 3, 4, 5 punches, head kicks, front kicks. I mean, it all played out exactly how they thought it would. So it was an amazing insight to go to the camp with her and then see it all play out in the fight the way it did. It was a really cool experience, and I hope to do more of those in the future, because it really, really gave me just kind of like a masterful insight of what it takes to get there, and then to all see it play out the way it did in the fight.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, ATT right now, they're just on fire. Things are happening for those guys. When you wrote the piece and you were speaking about it, and you spoke to us a little bit about it before, I mean, just the names in that room, in that training room that were training all near each other, it's just unbelievable. It's like a who's who of MMA. But Cass, quickly, while we're still on this fight, do you have any ideas what you'd like next for both girls?
Yeah, I mean, look, well, for the moment, it looks like Joanna's going to stay in the 115 division, so it's a really easy sell. Obviously, Thug Rose, she earned it with a victory over Michelle Waterson, so that's clearly the next fight to make. And it's a fight that people have wanted for a very long time. Even when Thug Rose was facing Caroline, I think a lot of people thought Thug Rose was going to win, and so now we finally have that fight. Granted, it was a little bit delayed, so... And, there's a little bit of bad blood, there's a little bit of trash talk. There's already memes of when the camera cut to Rose Namajunas at UFC 211 with the background of Hello Darkness, my old friend. So, that's obviously the fight to make, and I think that you've got to think that with this 125-pound division around the corner, it's only a matter of time that Joanna will be obviously looking to claim that title very soon. And it's interesting that when asked about it, Dana White said that he expects Joanna won't want to cut to 115 anymore if she's the 125-pound champion. Someone was kind of like, hey, will you let her, I think it was John Morgan asked, will you let her hold both belts? And he's like, well, you see people sort of, once they move up, they don't want to cut anymore. And I think that was a pretty clear reference to Conor McGregor, and it sounds like maybe he wouldn't want her to hold both belts at the same time, maybe hold up 2 divisions. Maybe he's hoping that if she goes up and, a new star will emerge at 115. I can't imagine them being anything like Joanna, but, maybe. And I think for Andrade, I think maybe the loser of Claudia and Carolina, I think that, you sort of keep her up at the top of the division. I really don't think this loss did anything bad for her. She's a baby in the sport at just 25, and who knows what happens with Joanna, how long she's sticking around, and what division in. So Andrade may at some point be the future of the division.
And she's super durable as well. I mean, the shots that she was able to take was unbelievable. So very interested to see what the future holds for her. Damon, let's jump to the main event. And Stipe was able to put on a display against JDS. I mean, a lot of us picked for Stipe to win this, but I mean, my prediction was the second round, Cass. I think yours might have been the third. But this thing happened in the first, and this was after JDS was able to land a pretty good leg kick there that looked like it kind of hurt Stipe. What was your thought on the way he was able to manhandle JDS and finish this fight, and just your reaction from being there live in the crowd, being able to witness it?
Well, it was, it was crazy, because what I didn't expect, although I probably should have, was the way that Stipe just walked him down. I mean, that, Junior Dos Santos, for all the things he's done in the sport, one of the things we always admire about him is A, his boxing, but also B, his quickness and kind of footwork for a heavyweight. He's a very nimble heavyweight. He moves really, really well. And that's what was amazing about Cain Velasquez, grabbing onto him and clinching against him and then beating him up in those 2 fights where he beat Junior, was because he slowed him down by clinching with him and not allowing Junior to move, because allowing Junior to move is how he got knocked out the first time. the way Stipe just walked him down was ridiculous. I mean, I went to Cleveland a couple weeks ago and spent a day with Stipe, and he seemed supremely confident. Going into the fight. It was pretty amazing to see how confident he was going into that, almost like he knew it was going to happen. And I think there's a thin line between confidence and cockiness. I think we see a lot of confidence in Conor McGregor, and people take it as cockiness, but I think there's a certain confidence that gets him through his fights, like what we saw with him do against Eddie Alvarez. And I think that's what Stipe had. Stipe just had in his mind that Junior is not going to land anything, and he's not going to hurt me, and I'm going to walk this dude down. I'm going to knock him out. And it was an amazing performance because, yes, Junior has been knocked out before. He got knocked out by Alistair Overeem. He went through that, 5 rounds of hell with Cain Velasquez before he got finished in that fight. So he's been finished before, but no one has ever done what Stipe Miocic did. Not even Alistair Overeem with the knockout he landed on Junior. He didn't do it that way. He caught him and he finished him, and it was damn impressive. But he didn't just walk down Junior Dos Santos. Stipe walked him down as if he wasn't even worried about what was coming at him. And I thought that was just an amazing performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he did a great job of highlighting everything that Stipe did well. On the flip side, we said it in the preview show that basically the story of Junior's worst losses was that he would back straight up against the cage and, either get beat up or taken down by the likes of Cain or Stipe. And if he could fix that bad habit with better lateral movement, that it could essentially breathe new life into his career. And, in fairness, he did come out and he was using more leg kicks. He looked like, he had a slightly new game plan. But once again, old habits die hard, and that trait is exactly what cost Junior the fight. That, and obviously Stipe's athleticism, his footwork, his improvements, his knockout power, and everything that you made mention of, Damon. I honestly, after seeing this fight, I kind of get the feeling that Junior's days of terrorizing the division are over. I don't want to be too glib about it, but, he went through wars against Cain, and along with his incredible punching power, his durability was one of his trademarks. And now he's been knocked out in 2 of his last 3 fights. His chin doesn't quite look like what it used to be, and honestly, even physically, I was watching some old fights. He looks a little bit different to me, and I'm not trying to throw anything out there, but just from what I've noticed, and anything can happen. Obviously, Verdum or Overeem can become the champion. I could definitely see Junior potentially beating them, but I think as long as Stipe or Cain are champions, I just don't see Junior anywhere near that title. That he just really needs to correct that bad habit of constantly backing up against the cage. So. For Junior, I'd like to see him potentially fight Travis Brown, another guy coming off a loss, another guy sort of at a crossroads of his career. I think Junior, if anything, he needs a bit of a confidence booster. And I think for me personally, a lot of people are talking about Francis Ngannou or Derek Lewis. I'm not quite sold on Derek Lewis yet. I love him as a personality. I think he's a fun fighter to watch, but I think skill-wise, most of the top guys would beat him. So I don't really buy into him seeing him getting a title shot. I think Mark Hunt, with everything that's going on in the lawsuit and the fact that he just got knocked out by the guy who knocked out the guy, or got knocked out by the guy, the champion is Stipe. I don't think he's close to a title shot. Francis Ngannou, I think is not quite there, and Cain Velasquez apparently is coming back in the fall, so September, October, November, December. I think that if Stipe wants to chill for the next 6 months or 5 months, have a bit of a holiday, and then fight Cain Velasquez, that's the fight to make. 2 guys, former champions, they both defended the belt twice, and this is almost like a fight for who is the greatest heavyweight of all time. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, it's slim pickings in the heavyweight division right now. I'd be cool with it. I'm just curious if Stipe wants to sit out and wait that long while he's on this run, maybe get a couple of easy title defenses, make a bit more money, and sort of get ready for that Cain fight. But yeah, it is slim picking. I guess the interesting thing will be if Derek Lewis does lose in New Zealand, and I mean, there's a really good chance that he does, then you got another guy that sort of loses quite a bit of steam that you could possibly market as a potential guy that fights a top person in the division and makes his way to a title shot. So it's a bit of slim pickings there, Damon. I mean, apart from what Casper's mentioned, is there anyone else that comes to mind that could possibly make their way to a title shot against Stipe that we're not thinking about?
Well, I think it comes down to 2 people right now. I think it comes down to Derek Lewis. If he gets past Mark Hunt, I think that's the next fight, in my opinion. Derek would be on, a 7-fight win streak at that point. If he beats Mark Hunt, I think they're going to give it to him. Derek is a fun guy. He's a marketable guy. He's an outspoken guy, and it's an interesting matchup with Stipe. I mean, I think Stipe would beat him, and I think Stipe would be a massive favorite in that fight. But, there's really no one else really more deserving. I mean, do you want to rush Francis Ngannou in there? I know Francis has talked a lot lately, but I have a bad feeling that Francis would get Yair Rodriguez if he fought Stipe right now. And the other option is Cain Velasquez, but the problem with Cain is they're talking about Cain not coming back to the fall. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with him getting a title shot right out of the gate necessarily, because he is off that knockout over Travis Brown, but it was last July. I mean, the guy is so injured, and his career has been ruined by injury that I'd almost not want to put him in a title fight situation just out of worry that he'd end up dropping out because everything else has happened in his career. So as much as I'd like, I mean, a dream matchup for me is Stipe versus Cain Velasquez, because I truly do believe those two guys could be the best two heavyweights in the UFC. But if I'm Cain Velasquez, if I'm the UFC, I got to give Cain Velasquez another fight and make sure he shows up and make sure he shows up healthy. Whether he fights Ngannou or whether he fights, Volkov, or whether he fights someone else in that division to get kind of a quote unquote warm up fight to get back in there. I think you got to do that just because there's such a risk with putting Cain Velasquez back in a main event, especially in a title fight. As much as I want to see it, I just can't pull the trigger on putting Cain in a title fight after being out for more than a year with an injury in his back and his neck and everything else that's been going on. I just have a hard time saying, yeah, let's book him in a 5-round title fight that we're going to try to sell a pay-per-view on based on the fact that Cain is going to show up. I think you got to get him one more fight, make sure he's healthy, and then hopefully you can put that fight together. And that's why I think in a perfect world, it's Derek Lewis next and then Cain Velasquez.
And I'm just curious, Damon, from what you understand, I mean, we know Cain has been plagued with injuries, but physically, how bad are these injuries? Is it something that can heal and he'll be the old Cain again, or are these lingering things that will always be a factor for him from now on whenever he prepares for a fight?
Well, I think they're going to be lingering because they continue to add up. That's the problem. It's not one injury. It's not even Dominic Cruz where he had one knee injury, that just continued to fall apart on him and it took him out for 2 years. I mean, this is a guy who's just had a litany of problems: shoulder, elbow, back, neck, knee. I mean, the guy just, unfortunately, when he's healthy and he's actually held together, he's maybe one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. But unfortunately, there's not enough duct tape in the world to keep this guy together. And I think, the guy's in his mid-30s now. I mean, listen, I'm in my 30s as well, and you guys understand this when you're, the way you feel at 30 is not the way you feel at 20, and the way you feel at 20, you know what I mean? So age has a factor, and eventually these injuries don't heal up as quickly. You don't bounce back. It's like every single time you get knocked down, you come back a little bit lesser. It's like watching football players in the NFL. There's a reason why running backs in the NFL, once they get to like 26 or 27 years of age, teams stop taking chances on them and paying them big money because they know the toll their bodies have taken at that point. You're just biding your time until they fall apart. And that's where we're at with Cain Velasquez. The guy's 34. We just can't expect that he's going to continue to bounce back stronger and better, or at least stay as the same as he always was each and every time. I feel like these injuries continue to mount. And like I said, we've lost out on one of the greatest talents in the history of the sport, in my opinion. But unfortunately, it just doesn't seem. I just can't bet on Cain coming back the same anymore.
Well, it remains to be seen. Now, Damon, we're going to let you go in a moment. Before we do, we got to ask you for your insight and your opinion on something that we've been talking about for the last few weeks, and a story that we've been very much enjoy following and sometimes harping on. Obviously, we're talking about GSP versus Bisping, the fight that just kept getting delayed. And I feel like you're a man who basically knew it all along. You told us on the show quite a few weeks ago that you were thinking probably November, that, if Conor and Mayweather happens in September, there's no way they're going to do it then. And then, of course, GSP made that video. Now, allegedly, that fight is broken up. Some people are not buying it, though. Some people think that maybe this is just public posturing. Some people think that Romero hasn't, in fact, gotten any kind of shot. Maybe this is a Khabib, Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205 situation. What do you think of this whole thing, and what do you know? What can you tell us about it? Are you buying it that GSP is out?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit that the UFC needs big fights this summer because they're missing out on a lot of big fights. I mean, they booked Jones Cormier, which is finally coming together, but kind of like with Cain Velasquez, are we actually going to get to see it this time? So there's still a little bit of their hedge and their bets there. I think the announcement that GSP was no longer getting the fight, I think it was pure posturing on Dana White's part to try to get GSP to step up and accept the fight for an earlier date. I know they wanted it on July 8th. I think at this point we all know it's not going to happen, but I think they would be happy to put that fight on in August. That would be a big time. They need a big card in August. I mean, last August they had the Diaz-McGregor fight. October even would be a better alternative than waiting until November. They could put on a big card there. So I think, is it a ploy to get GSP to accept the fight, kind of like what you said with Khabib and Eddie Alvarez? Yes. But the problem is they really do believe the UFC is tired of waiting. I really do believe they want to get this division moving again. Obviously, having every single middleweight in the world complain right now is probably not a good look for the organization. And the problem they're having is that Bisping hasn't fought since October. So if you wait till November, that means the title's been on hold for 13 months, which nobody really wants. Now, none of this is Bisping's fault. Bisping wanted to fight July 8th. He wanted to fight at UFC 213, but unfortunately, it looks like George isn't going to be ready. So either George is going to step up and say, I'll take this fight at an earlier date, which could still happen. So in that aspect, I would say the fight's not dead, but I truly do believe they want to get Bisping booked sometime this summer. If for no other reason, then they need a main event. They need fights they can sell, and you can't just have a title on the shelf for a year and a month hoping that you're going to get to fight with GSP.
Mm-mm. And we really appreciate your time, Damon. It's a crazy time in the MMA world, so we'll have to see what happens with all these things happening right now. But before we let you go, and we have been pretty selfish, we've been keeping you on the program for quite some time, and we're lucky you're a buffet buddy and you overlook these things. Want to quickly talk about The Mummy, which is a movie that a lot of people are not sure how to feel about. Now, the people that don't know, apart from your great work on Fox Sports, you also got the website Nerdcore Movement, which has a lot of breakdowns, previews, and things in terms of pop culture, movies, and TV shows. So you're the man to sort of talk to about this. In a brief sort of statement, we don't have to get into it too much, and you don't have to give away any spoilers or anything like that. But how do you feel about this Mummy movie? Because a part of me, when I watch the trailer, I think, hey, this looks pretty damn good. And by the way, I'm a fan of Tom Cruise. I like the work that he does, and I think a lot of his work is pretty solid. So when you look at Tom Cruise being in it, when you look at it sort of looking a bit scarier than usual, a little bit darker than usual, kind of returning back to this old school Mummy movie ways where you get a little bit of a fright and it's a little bit of a thriller. What do you think about it? Are you excited about it?
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued enough that I'll go see it. I mean, I like Tom Cruise. He's had some, he's had a couple of stinkers, but he's also had a lot of good movies. He's kind of that. The way I look at Tom Cruise in action movies, kind of like with all the Mission Impossibles, he's kind of what I would call a B actor. And what I mean by B actor is that none of the movies he's done really make me think, man, this was an A+ movie. This is a movie I'm going to have to go out and buy on DVD the day it comes out or on Blu-ray. I got to go see it a second time in the theater, that kind of a feeling. What I mean by B actor is that he's always consistent. His movies are always pretty good. They're just not great, and I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing this movie. Actually, what I'm more excited about is his co-star in the movie, Annabelle Wallace. She's in the show Peaky Blinders, which I absolutely love. And I love her. She's amazing and she's gorgeous, and I'm a big fan of hers. So I'm curious to see how she's going to do in the movie. And the girl who's playing the actual mummy was from Star Trek Beyond, and I thought she did a fantastic job in that movie as well. So I'm curious. I mean, like I said, am I running to the movie theater to see it? Is it going to be something where I'm going to go to a Thursday night show and see the show? Probably not. But will I go see it? Absolutely. I like mummy movies. I like the old school Universal horror movies with the Mummy and Frankenstein and Dracula. So I'm curious enough to go see it. And the guy who wrote it, Alex Kurtzman, is a guy who has written a ton of great movies. He's been around for a long time. I mean, he's been involved in in a lot of really, really well done TV shows and films before. So like I said, it's enough for me to say I want to go see it. Am I going to run to go see it? No, but I will go see it in the theater.
And of course, the other movie that you may run to go see is John Wick 2. That's been certified fresh and Rotten Tomatoes. I'm just curious for people looking at this movie. I mean, the first one was great. I really enjoyed it, but I guess a lot of people didn't really take it that seriously. The second one, it's been highly touted as something that you can go watch, enjoy, and really just kick back and enjoy one of those old school kind of classic action movies. So I don't know if you've had a chance to sort of review it or anything like that, but just for a preview's sake, what can you mention to fans at home? Because it's only just coming out in Australia, I believe May 18th.
I love John Wick, and I was late to the party on the original John Wick. I heard about it a million times, but I never went and saw it because it was one of those movies that didn't catch my attention right away. And then everybody was like, you got to see this movie. You got to see this movie. And that's immediately when I'm like, come on, it can't be that good. It can't be as good as you're saying it is. And so I finally caught it on cable, like on HBO when it came out on HBO. and I was blown away. The action scenes were great. The dialogue was outstanding. Keanu Reeves was great. All the co-stars were amazing. So I was blown away. The sequel is outstanding. They did a really, really good job with the sequel. I was actually kind of shocked because going in, I kind of had lower expectations. They didn't bring back the same director, and it was such a surprise the first time around that you kind of feel like you can't duplicate that. When you kind of surprise people, you can't really duplicate it. But we talked about the last time I was on the show, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, how, in my opinion, it was right on par with the original one, and it's kind of funny because you always wonder, because that was kind of like that out of nowhere kind of picture that you're like, is it going to be good? And then it was great. Can they duplicate it? Well, Guardians did, and I would say John Wick did as well. It was a great action film. They added in some new elements. Ruby Rose is in it, and there's a few other new people in it, which was fun. And it was an enjoyable movie. And if you like action and you like crazy shootouts and you like crazy martial arts, John Wick is definitely the movie for you.
Well, there you guys go. And I mentioned May 18th, obviously not realizing that it is May 18th, so you guys can go check that out now if you're in Australia and you want to check that out at cinemas. But Damon, thank you so much for jumping into the program, guys. Make sure to check out Nerdcore Movement. That is your place to go for all these amazing things that Damon has been talking about, pop culture, TV shows, new movies. Jump on it, check it out. And, of course, his work on Fox Sports, which is amazing too. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Damon Martin. Damon, thank you so much for coming onto the program. It's always a pleasure to have you, man.
Oh, always a pleasure to be on, guys. I cannot wait to do it again, and hopefully we'll see you over here in the States soon, because there are so many buffets that we have not busted that are just waiting for us to show up.
Well, that's right. And, I mean, UFC 214 looks like the time to do it, so we'll have to start planning out what we'll do and where we'll go. But, guys, me and Cass, we have some stuff to talk about before we wrap up the show. Cass, first thing I want to talk to you about is this kickoff press conference.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to discuss about this press conference. Obviously, it happened over the weekend, so we haven't had a chance to really discuss it, but just a few reactions. I think one of my biggest takeaways from it was just, obviously, the amount of unexpected trash talk between basically everybody. Fighters are clearly sort of influenced by the clear direction of the UFC and the fact that the recent history has shown that basically the louder you are and the more interest you bring in, the more you're rewarded. And it's sort of been understood for a long time in MMA, but it seems like now fighters are taking notice more than ever. And I think that all these things like the GSP situation, the Conor McGregor situation, everybody's kind of realized this for better or worse, and it's essentially extra work for the fighters, and I think a lot of fighters have to try very hard to do it, so I respect everyone for trying and making the effort and really putting on a show. A press conference that people sort of didn't expect much from. Some of it was good, some of the trash talk. I think Valentina, she did really well with just a few words. She was like the strong, silent type. She was like a sexy Ivan Drago. John Jones, I think he's doing really well now. He really embraced who he is, and people love it. He doesn't need to go out there and seem all, Mr. Religious, Mr., I'm Bruce Lee, I'm the prophecy and all this kind of stuff. He's just sort of embracing it. Yeah, I am a junkie, I am this, and I beat your ass. I thought Justin Gaethje, that was a nice way to make a big splash in your first outing. Kevin Lee, some of the stuff he said was really good. He really went hard. Michael Chiesa, I thought, did a fantastic job of sort of playing back up to Kevin Lee, chiming in with a few little things before he lost his mind a little bit on stage. We'll talk about that in a moment. There was some of it that I thought was a little bit cringeworthy. He didn't really come across all that well. I think Amanda Nunes, sometimes I just felt like saying, oh man, you just got to cut it short. You're going a little bit too long. You're sort of waffling on there. Michael Johnson, something about how I eat my shit whole, I don't even bite. I was like, holy shit, that's some Shooter McGavin shit right there. Mm-hmm. And DC, I want to touch on his sort of trash talk in a moment, but yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of, I like DC, I really do, but I think a lot of his trash talk missed the mark. But yeah, what were your takeaways from it, Dennis?
I know when they first sort of revealed these matchups, I wasn't overly blown away by them compared to obviously last time when they did a similar press conference. And you kind of sets the tone of, all right, the UFC is really sort of scrambling here, trying to put stuff together. So at the start, I was a little bit like, all right, I'm interested to see what's going to happen here. Because obviously, you don't have your Bisping, you don't have your GSP, you don't have your McGregors or anything like that, or even like Anderson Silvas or anything like
Cody
that.
Garbrandt, TJ.
So I thought, I wasn't expecting much from it, but I was like, I'm interested to see how this goes. And I was really, really pleasantly surprised. I thought it was actually really, really good. It was almost a blessing that it was so bare and a lot of these guys weren't there, because it really gave these guys an opportunity to showcase themselves. Like, I thought Justin Gaethje, like this is a guy that a lot of hardcore MMA fans know, but really casual UFC fans don't really know who he is. And I thought it was really great for him to get, his moment in the sun, being able to do this thing with Michael Johnson. It kind of pumped me up for their fight as well. Like you mentioned, Kevin Lee, that's another guy. That guy that really got a good thing from it, I think, got a lot of new fans. People sort of knew who he was, grew his name through that. So, yeah, with those guys. And obviously, the other thing, we'll be talking about this in a second, but I kind of forgot about the vibe that you get when John Jones and DC get together.
Yeah.
And because we've had these Conor McGregor fights, we've had these really, really big fights like Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, and these type of fights where, it's really, really exciting. And you think back to DC Jones and you kind of forget about what made that rivalry special. And I was wondering, I was thinking, what will I feel like when they're in the same room? Will it be the same, or will it be them sort of trying to regain what they once had, not quite the same? But yeah, it was really, really exciting. It was really, really good. I got that old vibe back and really reminded me why this is a big fight. So it was almost like a blessing in disguise, and having these big names there and letting these guys get their moment in the sun. Because, let's face it, if Conor McGregor was there, for example, I don't think we'd be getting much of an opportunity here from like a Justin Gaethje or a Kevin Lee or anything like that. So it ended up being really, really good.
Yeah, you mentioned DC John Jones, and it's like you remember the build-up to the first fight. They had that brawl. And obviously then it cooled for a while, then they had another build. You just kind of think of those moments, you think, how can he top that? A brawl, John Anik, fearing for his life, getting pushed off the stage, John Jones just being like, no, get the fuck out of my way, punching DC or throwing a punch, I think it was John Jones' manager throwing a shoe. How can he top that? And this is like, it's like a fine wine. It's just aged, and I'm excited as ever. And, I mentioned some of the trash talk that went over well, some of it that kind of missed the mark. Look, ultimately, because I think a lot of people are looking at it and saying, look, all right, that was a really fun press conference, but do we want a lot of people kind of going out of their way, some trash talking well, some, really forcing it? Look, I think ultimately it's a good thing. Like you mentioned, people didn't expect anything from this presser other than Jones DC. We had people, messaging us saying, well, what's a press conference without McGregor? It isn't a press conference. And it turned out to be a really memorable one. And I think that at the end of the day, seeing this, and even if you think, well, that was a pretty lame comeback, or that was kind of lame, or this didn't really hit the mark, I think it's a lot better than seeing a press conference where people are asked questions and it's the same generic response. I respect my opponent. He or she is great, and we're going to put on an exciting fight. Boring. I know that a lot of people saying, well, that's the martial arts attitude. Look, I think these fighters are going to do a lot better if they're sort of trying to come out and get out of their bubble. And I think for some people, they're trying to talk trash. I think for other people, it's kind of like a Gegard Mousasi situation where for so long they were worried that they have to say the correct thing all the time. They have to be politically correct with everything. And now they're just kind of like, screw it. I'm just going to say whatever I want. I'm amazed with Amanda Nunes' transformation. You were there, Dennis, with me at UFC 200, where she was quiet as a mouse. She looked almost scared. She was basically, and I'm not saying this, as an insulting way, but just as a matter of fact, she was almost trembling every time she picked up the mic. She couldn't wait to put it back down. And now she's sitting there. She's wearing a tank top. She's got her arms out. She's chewing gum. She's engaging in trash talk. She had a really fierce stare down with Valentina Shevchenko, where they, sort of push each other in the face. I love it. I love seeing that. I think that a trash talk needs to work. But look, for someone who doesn't really speak the language, it's incredibly impressive, and I'm happy to see her grow. I'm curious though what you thought about this Kevin Lee Michael Chiesa thing, because that sort of went 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, that was super crazy. That that was definitely one of the highlights of the whole thing for me. It was just crazy how, because I watched it a few times over. It was just crazy how quickly Kevin Lee went from sitting down to punching Chiesa right in the face. Like, it was just unbelievable, the speed that the guy has. I thought it was really, really good. The security handled it well. I thought they separated both guys. I was happy they were able to get their stare down in, because the last thing you want to do is lose your opportunity to get the most out of this press conference. And I think this really got me excited for the fight, because, look, we had Lee on the show recently, and, he's obviously a great trash talker, but, with this fight, it seemed like he had quite a bit of respect for Chiesa. Now, with this matchup, I'm just excited to see what happens with these guys, press conference-wise, back and forth-wise. I thought it was really, really good. I think Kevin Lee really made the most of this opportunity, and this is a great thing for Chiesa, because a lot of people talk about the Conor McGregor effect. Like, when Conor McGregor came into featherweight and he started trash talking a lot of these dudes, people cared about those dudes a lot more. Like, Chiesa has a big fan base, but no doubt about it, if him and Kevin Lee have a bit of a battle, on the mics leading into their fight and blah, 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 and there's a bit of a rivalry, Chiesa wins, he comes out smelling like roses. So it was really, really, it just kind of happened out of nowhere as well, which there was the element of surprise. It was really great. What did you think?
Yeah, I'll give you my thoughts on that in a second, but just one thing, as you're sort of talking about it, and it's given me this mental image of Kevin Lee wearing that, interesting outfit, and everyone kind of looked interesting. Amanda Nunes with her mullet and tank top, she had her own look. Everybody had their own look, and it kind of makes me think that, whether you like the trash talk or not, I think in this era where you've got Reebok and everybody, there's all this discontent, everyone's unhappy, it almost seems like, everybody's kind of blending in. In The Simpsons, when they get the school uniforms and they're all like gray and everyone's all like melancholy, and then it rains and all of a sudden they're like tie-dye rainbow. It's kind of like that. You've got all these different characters on stage and everybody's kind of, breaking out. You got, Kevin Lee wearing all this crazy stuff, wearing apparently $3,000 or so sunglasses. I will say though, like, it was a funny situation with Chiesa getting so upset given what Kevin Lee said, which is essentially nothing. It's not, look, I think, obviously Chiesa has a sort of special bond with his mum, and he's closer to her than some people might be with their mums. But it's kind of like, look, it's not Kevin Lee's job to really know that. And it's not like he said, look, I'm going to have sex with your mum. He mentioned that, like, basically he's going to beat him in front of everybody. He's going to come to Oklahoma, and it's going to be a waste of his time. Your mum's got tickets. She's basically going to be sitting in the front row watching you get beaten. And Chiesa just lost his mind. And I don't know. I thought it was a funny thing to sort of get that upset over, but I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I also understand that in that kind of environment. And this is why I respect everybody for sort of trying to talk trash, and even if they fail, because in that environment, when you're on a stage or in front of everybody, there's people trying to essentially embarrass you. I think you're sort of not really thinking rationally. And I know Chiesa was on the MMA Hour, and he kind of said as much. He said, "Look, it's not his job to know about like me and my mom, and blah blah blah. And it's water under the bridge." But yeah, I thought that was funny how that happened. But in saying that, a lot of people afterwards were saying that outshone DC and John Jones. Going to that press conference, who would have thought that Kevin Lee and Michael Chiesa in any way would have outshone DC and John Jones? So, yeah, I like that. I'm curious, though, what you thought. I want to speak about this. Daniel Cormier and his trash talking, he is getting a lot of boos, and we've never really spoken on the show at length about it. What do you make of DC's trash talk? Obviously, he's a big WWE guy. We used to be big WWE guys. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's interesting because, DC's kind of got a couple of different personas. He's a really big fan of this guy called Bobby Roode, I think. Yeah, Bobby Roode in NXT. That's like a smaller company in the WWE. And Bobby Roode has this persona. They call him Glorious. He comes out. You and me, we saw him here in Melbourne, actually. He comes out and he sort of has his arms up and people saying, Glorious, blah, 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 blah. And DC sort of done that in a lot of his promo photos. I know it's the ringtone on his phone. Like, he's really obsessed with it. I think sometimes he sort of goes into that kind of heel mode when he hears the boos and he starts going at it. I'll tell you what, though. His trash talk isn't the greatest, but I didn't mind what he did at this press conference. Sometimes he says stuff that's a bit lame, but I think he did well to keep things going, which is a bonus. Like, I think sometimes, we've seen a lot of times in trash talking back and forth, dudes run out of things to say and it kind of comes to a lull. He was able to keep it going, which is good. He was able to sort of set and feed John Jones to keep going as well, which was good. And then, at the end, I think John Jones said something about his kids, and he was sort of chasing them around afterwards.
It was at the start. It was before the press conference started.
Oh, okay, before the press conference, and there was some footage of that. I mean, no doubt about it, DC sort of, at the back of his head, realized, hey, people are here, they'll take some footage, and this is going to happen as well. So, overall, like, I think he could have done a lot worse than what happened at the press conference. What did you think?
Yeah, like the reason why I bring it up is because obviously DC gets a lot of negativity. A lot of fans have sort of turned on him when he was coming up in the ranks, when he's going to face John Jones. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, we want him to beat John Jones, and John Jones was kind of hated at that time, and now it's just completely flipped. And it's something that I've been thinking about for a while now. Why is he getting this hate? And I think recently I've been able to sort of pinpoint it. For the record, I like DC. Never met the guy, but from everything that I've seen, and he seems like a really nice guy, family man, and I understand what he's doing and why he's doing it because of his, lifelong, fandom and obsession with the WWE. But I will say, though, when DC cuts promos, to me, it's very obvious that he's trying to work an angle and he's trying to sell people on something. People can clearly see it, and I think it puts people off. I think that people don't like feeling like somebody's manipulating them or getting in their head. And when you are, cutting a promo, you are essentially selling something. That's what you are doing when pro wrestlers do it. And, Chael, he said some ridiculous things, and it was clear what he was doing, but he had such a straight face, and it was also so quick-witted that you almost suspended your disbelief and appreciated it. And I think Connor's trash talk comes very naturally and has so much emotion that it comes across very real. And I think, with DC, he's kind of always breaking character, and he's laughing while he's delivering his lines. And I kind of think, like, DC's trash talk, when you hear it, it's actually almost like a filtered, crafted, like a PG version of his actual thoughts. There are moments where sort of he's trying to say something and it's kind of, he's not really getting anywhere. He's trying to make a comeback and it doesn't go anywhere. I think that he's not that sharp. Like, I don't mean that as an insult. I don't mean as far as intelligence. I think he's a smart guy. But what I mean is he's not a Ric Flair. He's not a Roddy Piper. He's not a Stone Cold on the microphone where they're just, lightning quick with their comebacks and they just hit the mark. And I think sometimes his promos just go for a bit long. I think Jon Jones is sort of winning the trash talk with a lot less. Like, he didn't need to say much. He just needed a few words because he really believed them and he was just being honest. He was saying, yeah, I am a junkie and I beat you, and people love that. And I think that instead of trying to sound clever or cool, I think the DC should just kind of, speak from the heart. You mentioned that backstage thing where DC got pissed off. I think that was his best trash talk. I think the best part was before that press conference where he got genuinely pissed off and he started yelling at Jon Jones, and I think he ended up calling him the N-word. That's what Kevin Lee was saying. I mean, that's interesting because it was real. He wasn't working anything. He was upset because Jon Jones said something about his kids, and you could see it. It was the most real that I've seen John Cormier in a while. And so everything that followed was a bit too sort of crafted, and it kind of missed the mark for me. So, I appreciate being up on that stage and, having to think on the spot in front of all these people and having someone embarrass you. Like, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I don't know. I think it's even more reason why DC should just speak from the heart and stop giving us a censored version of his thoughts. If he wants to sit there and, just say, you're a fucking junkie, I'm going to beat you, shut the fuck up. That's all he should say. I think he needs to be, and you'll appreciate this, Dennis, he needs to be more Attitude Era and less PG Era. More Stone Cold, less John Cena. That's what I think about that.
Sure. No, I like it. Look, at the end of the day, I think as long as he's getting booze because people don't like him rather than Tyron Woodley's booze because he's sort of frustrating people, he'll do all right. And as long as he's keeping things going, this fight should be interesting. But a part of me, the deal is this, right? And I mean, people that have done some acting will understand this. It's a lot easier to cut a promo that you've formulated in your head or say something because you're not getting caught up in it emotionally. And sometimes as a fighter, when you get caught up emotionally, if you're like, oh, blah, 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 and you speak from your heart and you're truthful in that moment, it could be really, really draining, and it's easier for the other guy to get into your head. So I don't know. I noticed during some of that time he looked a little bit uncomfortable. I know, like Ariel sort of asked him about that. He was sort of looking forward. He wasn't really enjoying it. I think those are the parts where things are getting real for him. I don't think he likes it when things get real for him because it messes with him mentally. And from an Olympics perspective, he just likes to sort of keep Jon Jones out of his head and keep these sort of more PG promos going. So I'll be interesting to see. I think if you're Jon Jones, you definitely want to draw more emotion out of him because that's going to help you in the fight. I mean, you want DC to want to try and prove something in this fight, like in their first fight when he tried to just keep trying to take Jon Jones down over and over and over and over to prove he could do it. You want him to be emotional. So you want to try and get in his head. You want to do that. And that's sort of like what Kevin Lee did with Michael Chiesa. Like, that was a big win for Lee. He was like, all right, that's what I got to do to get into his head. That's what I got to do to mess around with him mentally. And that's what you want to do in these exchanges. At the end of the day, you win when the other guy flips, when the other guy's affected somehow mentally, because that's going to affect him in the fight. So very interested to see it, man. And that's the other thing. I mean, there's a little bit of time before 214. I'm wondering what's going to happen. I wonder how the build-up's going to go. But the thing that it reminded me is, hey, the UFC is going to be fine without Conor McGregor, more fine without Conor McGregor, more fine without GSP and Bisping than I thought. It reminded me that, hey, they still have some momentum here. They still have some interest. They still have something they can build on for fans. So that was sort of a positive that it took away from it all.
It's an interesting thought, actually. I never thought about that angle where DC doing this, it's more than just selling a fight, that it's kind of like a coping mechanism for him to sort of, stay out of the weeds and keep John Jones. That's an interesting thought. I never thought about it. That's good food for thought. All right, we're going to wrap up in a moment. But one last thing that we want to cover really quickly is just Weidman versus Gastelum. That was one of the fights that was there. There's no trash talk there. I think these guys have a tremendous amount of respect for each other. Neither guy really said a whole lot, and that's 100% fine. But I just want to talk and get our reaction, your reaction, Dennis, just on this matchup. Obviously, Weidman has had, really rough few years between injuries and losses, and now this Mousasi thing is just kind of the last thing that he needed on his plate. I've got some pretty strong thoughts on this matchup. I don't know, a lot of people are kind of wondering, why is Weidman fighting a guy like Gastelum? He's a really stiff test. What do you think about this matchup? Are you a fan of it? Was there maybe somebody else that you would have rathered for Weidman? What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting that they've gone this way. The only way I can think about it is the UFC may be a little bit uncertain about Weidman's future, and they're just trying to sort of squeeze as much shine out of him as they can. And I think the UFC are actually really big on Kelvin Gastelum. Even though he's had those issues with weight cutting, I think they actually have this feeling that he might be the future of the middleweight division. And that's why they keep throwing him these sort of matchups to keep growing his name. I mean, him versus Anderson Silva is a good matchup to really grow him in the division. His fight with Vitor Belfort, that's another example of him sort of getting the shine from a bigger guy and getting more exposure. So I see this as them kind of looking at the situation of, okay, because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and it'll be great to get Chris Weidman on the show soon to sort of discuss it. But maybe behind the scenes they're like, okay, we don't know how much longer Chris Weidman's going to be around. Maybe he's on his decline. Maybe he's only got a few fights left. Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes. So we want to sort of get something out of Weidman and get a bit of shine onto Gastelum, and that's maybe why they didn't. That's one of the theories I have as to why they sort of didn't give him another opponent and put him in this matchup where if he loses, well, then the UFC sort of wins because Gastelum gets a bit more shine on him. More people put eyes on him. He grows in the division. But if he does beat Gastelum, which, again, who knows what's going to happen? Well, you sort of got Chris Weidman back, and maybe he's more motivated to stick around a bit longer. I don't know. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on it.
I think that I understand the UFC's perspective, and if they are high on Gastelum, which from everything that you've said and everything that we've noticed, I mean, if you give him fights like Anderson Silva and Vitor Belfort, you probably are trying to build up Kelvin Gastelum, but I just think it's not the fight that Weidman needs right now. It's a very tough fight against a guy who, yes, people are high up on him, but he's still kind of in this prospect state in the middleweight division. He hasn't proven himself just yet. Look, he looked fantastic in his last two fights, really. But granted, it was against the guy who retired immediately afterwards, in Tim Kennedy, and a guy who was about to retire in Vitor Belfort. So if Weidman beats him, I think there'll be a sect of fans that will say, look, Kelvin wasn't really ready for someone like Chris, right? So I don't think Weidman wins that much. I think if Weidman loses, he's on a 4-fight losing streak. Who would have thought this guy, not long ago was seen as the future of the division when he beat Anderson Silva, and a lot of people were picking him to beat Rockhold. And I mean, a 4-fight losing streak would just be devastating. Speaking to Chris, prior to this Mousasi fight, and when we asked him, basically, why did you take this Mousasi fight? Did you want anybody easy? And he kind of said, no, I want the toughest fights. I'm not looking for any breaks. And so it sounds like he would have been the one that would have been all for a tough matchup. I'd be very curious whether he asked for it, whether it's just the fight the UFC offered, and he said, yep, no worries. But I think somebody should have stepped in and said no for him. I think maybe his management, if the UFC aren't going to sort of look after him, then I think maybe his management should. And that's obviously nothing against his management. They're all great people. But I think that, honestly, I think Chris should have been fighting a guy like maybe Uriah Hall or Talis Ladies. Guys who, they are dangerous in their own right, but they provide, a much-needed opportunity for Chris to get his feet under him again and regain some very, very much-needed confidence. I just don't think Kelvin is that guy. He's incredibly fast and agile. His striking's looked great recently, and it's actually, I think, underrated. He's a high-volume striker, so not only does he strike well, but he really pours it on you. His timing's great, and his wrestling is really good. I don't see any easy outs for Weidman here. I'm not saying he won't beat him or can't beat him, but this is a really tough matchup, and it's not the matchup that he needs right now. I think it's a great fight for Kelvin. I think it'll be a really fun, entertaining fight. But it is just a really, really dangerous crossroads for Weidman. And you can just imagine if he's on a 4-fight losing streak, like, okay, sure, you can add asterisks, like, okay, against Rockhold it was for the title. Yoel Romero, he was coming back. Musashi was filled with controversy, but I mean, there's not really any excuse here. If he loses 4 in a row, you got to think he's really, really far away from the title. So that's why, like, I think it's going to be fun. I'm just not a fan of this fight for Weidman, personally.
Yeah. And you know what? We're going to jump to a quick movie review before we wrap up from you in just a second. But I've had this crazy thought. Just kind of popped into my head now, so I'm just going to share it. But, you know, Weidman, he's had some really, really tough weight cuts. And I don't know how much this affects him when he fights. But we've seen what these tough weight cuts can do to fighters. And you know that it's much harder to regain all the fluid in your brain after these tough weight cuts, especially without the IV. Also, we know that middleweight has a bunch of killers in there, and it's going to be just jam-packed for a while. So if he loses this fight, if I'm in his management and I want to get a bit wily here, I want to get a bit crazy here, I might suggest that he goes up to light heavyweight for a couple of fights just to see how he goes.
Yeah.
Reasoning behind it is light heavyweight, you don't have that. Well, who do you have in light heavyweight? You don't really have many people in light heavyweight. He's a pretty big guy. The preparation for his fights will be different because he doesn't have to cut that weight. And who knows? Who knows? It could be a Robert Whittaker thing where he actually fights a lot better if he doesn't destroy his body cutting the weight. So that's just something crazy I'm just throwing out there.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy at all. I actually agree with you. And I think that if he, I mean, we're talking about it like it's a funeral. Of course, like, you know, he may go in and smash Kelvin Gastelum. But let's say hypothetically he does. I think that the stink of those losses will sort of linger for a while. And I think sometimes it's good to just kind of refresh things. And when you go to a new weight class, it's almost, you're on a clean slate, basically. People have no expectations. Well, they have expectations, but you just think, well, those are losses, but they were in a different division. Let's see how he is now without, you know, all those things you mentioned, like, you know, the tough weight cut. And yeah, light heavyweight has no one. I think if he really wanted to climb and go for a title shot, it'd be a very quick ascent. He's also not a very fast middleweight, so against light heavyweights, this could be a big benefit for him. So yeah, I'm not opposed to that idea at all. And I think, you know, if he loses, and I hope nothing but the best for him. But if he does lose, then that could be really good. All right, we're gonna wrap up in a moment. I've got a quick movie review. For once, something that you haven't seen. Normally we sort of tag team these reviews, but I'm flying solo here. I saw a movie the other day that there's been a huge amount of hype for. I keep seeing ads for it. I keep seeing sort of posters for it. I see people talking about it, things on Facebook, and I skip every one of them because I kind of thought, yeah, I'm sold. I want to see this movie. I don't know much about it, but I'm happy to see it. And my girlfriend the other day was like, hey, have you seen Get Out? And I'm like, no, I haven't seen it. But she said, hey, it's on 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I was like, holy shit. All right, well, let's see it tonight. So we did. I went in there literally not knowing anything. Honestly, I saw like a few seconds of the trailer. I thought it was going to be some kind of like Kevin Hart movie, some kind of comedy or something. It's definitely not. So don't go in there expecting that. It is a really, really, really good movie. It's like a psychological thriller. It's actually pretty scary. It's embarrassing, but I don't know. There's a lot of things in this movie that kind of play on your mind. It's got that whole scary vibe to it, where it's not monsters or dragons or zombies or anything like that, but it's just, you know, like people acting very strange, and you sort of watching this movie going, why are you acting so strange? I want an answer. What's going on here? And for me, those are the best kind of scary movies because, and again, it's not horror, it's more thriller, but I always say this movie's like The Shining, the scariest because there is no monster. You just don't know what's going on. Someone's acting crazy and you have no idea. And it's kind of realistic in a sense where you kind of think, well, maybe this happens. Maybe it happens to a loved one or someone I know, or I find myself in this situation. Not that I'm saying this movie was 100% realistic, but it kind of was. And, oh man, it's super, super, super engaging. There's a lot of like jump scares in this. There's a lot of like kind of old school sound effects, if that makes sense. There's a lot of times, I don't know if that makes sense, but like think about like a horror movie from like, I don't know, the 80s or 70s or whatever, and they've got those like kind of like sound effects. There's a lot of that, and it's really, really eerie. The music in this is really good. I don't know, just like I didn't really recognize any of the actors. I think one of the women was the love interest in 40-Year-Old Virgin. Yeah, she's something in this movie, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's gonna play on things. Actually, last night it's morning and we're recording the show. Last night I had trouble sleeping. I'm not gonna lie. I know that makes me a bit of a pussy, but there are just certain things in this movie which I don't know, man. It just plays on your mind. I find it extremely satisfying. There's a couple of comedic bits, and I think they were done really, really well, even though it is a serious movie and a scary movie. And yeah, I don't know, man. Just the storyline, you're going to leave that movie going, holy shit, that was a roller coaster ride. I'm going to give it 4.5 Timothy Johnson mustaches.
Ooh. Is that the highest Timothy Johnson mustache rating you've ever given?
I think you're onto me, man. I think so. I was really, I don't know, man. I'm like almost tempted to give it 5 Timothy Johnson mustaches. I'm tempted to give it the full mustache treatment, but... yeah, I'll give it 4.5, but I really loved it. It is by far the best movie I've seen all year. I think, you know what? I think I enjoyed it more than Logan. And I really enjoyed Logan. I really, really enjoyed Logan. I really enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 2. For me, this one blows all of them away. Just go see it. I'm not going to say anything else, but it's just a real roller coaster ride, and you're going to be on the edge of your seat the whole time. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, if you guys are listening, I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, after you said that, how could we not check it out? And that's the best thing with movies, when they can take you somewhere and really give you an experience that you can't really get anywhere else. So I'll be checking that out. That's a very, very high Timothy Johnson mustache rating for those keeping score at home and keeping official records of our scores. That's right up there. So I'm very excited to check that out. But guys, that is the end of the program. Big thank you to TJ Dillashaw, Mark Hunt, Bas Rutten, and Damon Martin for this week. It's been a lot of fun doing the show for you guys. As always, jump on Twitter, jump on Facebook, follow us at Submission AUS, like our page, facebook.com/Submission Radio AUS. Shoot us a message. Give us your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you agree with us? Do you have something that you want to ask? Do you have some thoughts that you want to discuss from any one of the guests? Throw it in there. We love chatting to you guys. And also, don't forget, you can message us through Facebook and Twitter as well. Until then, guys, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in.